County Council is coming to you live from the council chambers and is a public affairs presentation of the Metro Nashville Network. Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat Nolan, your announcer for this program. Tonight, the 15th Metropolitan Council holds the 22nd business meeting of its four-year term. It has conducted 15 business meetings prior to tonight during 2020, along with one adjourned meeting. Because of concerns surrounding the coronavirus pandemic, the council tonight will again conduct its business virtually, operating for a 13th straight meeting under emergency rules. Due to those health concerns, the public is requested not to be present, and most of the council members will attend and participate online. The number of council members in the council chambers tonight is limited. Remember, the size of any meeting under the reconfigured Phase 2 of the Metro's reopening plan and social distancing requirements has been kept to just 25 people. We'll remain below that number in terms of who is here this evening. In the council chambers tonight are Vice Mayor Jim Schulman, who will conduct the meeting, and Council Pro Tempore Jeff Syracuse, who will run the session if the Vice Mayor cannot. Council Staff Director and Attorney John Cooper is also here, and a few other staff members, along with a few other council members. All of us present are observing the guidelines for social separation, including wearing a mask since we are in a Metro building. An executive order issued by Tennessee Governor Bill Lee allows local government legislative bodies to meet electronically during this time of emergency to handle necessary business. That executive order is extended to stay in force until at least the end of August. The council has a 12-page agenda tonight. At the beginning of the meeting, there is an appointment to the city's Historic Zoning Commission and election to the Health and Education Facilities Board. There's also about 4 pages of resolutions, about 3 pages of first reading bills, a page of second reading bills, and about 4 pages on bills in third and final reading. There could be, as usual, some late resolutions and some ordinances filed as well. A second reading ordinance is BL 2023-87 before the council tonight seeks to modify health insurance benefits for council members after they leave office. Similar legislation was considered by the council in 2012, 2015, and 2017, but not enacted and was rejected all 3 times. The new bill would end coverage for council members if they serve beginning in the next term of council, which would be in the fall of 2023, while continuing to allow it under previous members with their premium costs prorated based on their years of service and their terms in office. Again, this is after they leave office. By the way, the council's Budget and Finance Committee has recommended disapproval of this bill tonight. A resolution on the agenda of RS 2020-480 calls for a special election here in Nashville on December 5th for voters to consider 4 amendments to the city's constitution, which is the Metro Charter. Placing an amendment before the public is allowed twice during a council term. It takes a 27 or 2/3 vote of this body to place the matters on the ballot. All 4 of these members would be considered controversial. Amendment number 1 seeks to be in response to the recent 34% property tax increase. It would prohibit a property tax rate adopted by the council from increasing more than 6% over the prior year's property tax levy. Council staff says such a move would seem to violate state law, saying there is no provision in state law authorizing a limitation on the taxing authority under the property tax of the Metropolitan Council. Amendment number 2 would allow the Metropolitan Council to alter estimates of revenue or other funds availabilities included in the Metro budget. From the beginning of Metro 57 years ago, only the Metro Finance Director can do that. That has been a bone of contention in recent weeks, as some council members want to lower the recent property tax hike because of higher sales tax revenues. The full council rejected such a move to do that about 2 weeks ago at its last meeting. Amendment number 3 would provide that an executive order issued by the mayor expires after 30 days, unless extended by the mayor and approved by a resolution of the Metropolitan Council. Amendment 4 limits the powers of the vice mayor by requiring each council committee chair to be elected by the council body by a majority vote, as opposed to being appointed by the vice mayor, which is the way it's been since the beginning of the charter. A council committee chair could not serve for more than 1 year. Amendment would also provide that the council representative on the Metropolitan Planning Commission would no longer be required to be the chairperson of the council's Planning and Zoning Committee. Now, normally, charter amendments are deferred for study to the city's Charter Commission and by the other council committees. Already, the council's Charter Commission committee has voted to indefinitely defer this bill tonight. Councilman Glover, who's one of the sponsors, believes it's going to be deferred overall tonight for further council consideration in committees and by the city's Charter Commission. But given the special election coming up in December, time is going to be short to make a decision about this, given the need for a 2/3 vote passage for this overall. Approval of these amendments seems to be a bit challenging. Only council members Glover and Swopes are listed as sponsors of this bill. Council will also approve 2 memorializing resolutions tonight. One, RS 2020-499, recognizes the 30th anniversary of the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. Another resolution, RS 2020-498, recognizes the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. This last resolution comes on the exact date 100 years ago. The amendment was given final approval just up the street by the Tennessee legislature in the state capitol. That happened on August 18th, 1920. One third reading resolution tonight the council will consider is BL 2020-335, making it a violation of a mayoral executive order during a civil emergency to be a Class C misdemeanor, such as those are the sorts of things that sort of occurred during the violence here at the courthouse back at the end of May. Two other first reading bills to watch, although we don't expect any debate on them tonight. BL 2020-404, which significantly tightened the city's open container law requiring concerning alcohol possession. This is in the wake of the city's COVID-19 public health orders and alcohol issues on Lower Broad and the Gulch and in Midtown. Metro liberalized the open container rules a few years back to be more tourism and convention friendly. It's estimated the pandemic has already cost the city about $1 billion in 2020 and 2021. New law might add to that, further to that business. Another first reading bill is 2020-401 to watch tonight, would set up a process under state law for the council to approve subpoenas issued on behalf of the Metropolitan Community Oversight Board. This does not concern any specific subpoenas. None have been asked for by that body yet. But if there is such done, the process would be that the council would have to approve a resolution to do so, receiving at least 21 affirmative votes. If you want to follow tonight's council meeting as it progresses, you can find the agenda online as well as the council staff analysis with explanations of the legislation. Just go to the Metro Council portion of the Nashville.gov website, then to the Legislative Information Center. You'll also be placing the bill numbers on the screen when they're debated tonight so you can follow along and keep up with the bills with exactly where we are on the agenda. Let's go now to Vice Mayor Jim Shulman, who will gavel tonight's meeting to order.
Will the meeting please come to order? That's good. We welcome you to the Metro Council. Today is Tuesday, August the 18th, 2020. Will all members of the council, as well as the public, please rise for the invocation, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Invocation this evening will be offered by Mike Muldoon, the guest of Councilmember Jenny Welsh.
Like the sound of distant thunder in a summer night, like the echo of a baby's cry, or a simple somber moment of serenity in a mother's tender lullaby. Love keeps rolling, love keeps rolling on. And every word we ever heard from the lips of hate, making deeds to break this world apart, were like a freight train of salvation, running strong and true, rumbling through each open heart. Love keeps rolling, love keeps rolling on. Like a beacon burning bright through the cold and endless night. Love keeps rolling, love keeps rolling on. So day to day and year to year, this world will turn like a little blue pearl through space. From 100 million souls or so who live in hope, to the smile upon a stranger's face. Love keeps rolling, love keeps rolling on. Love keeps rolling, love keeps rolling on.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. You may be seated. Council members, again, we will be utilizing the WebEx platform tonight. If you wish to be recognized, please hit your raise your hand button. On roll call votes, we'll be calling the roll. So, Madam Clerk, based upon that, please call the roll.
Mendez.
Present.
Hurt. Present. Allen.
Present.
Glover.
Present.
Suara.
Present.
Hall.
Present.
Toombs. Present. Gamble.
Present.
Swope.
I'm here.
Parker.
Present.
Withers. Present. Benedict.
Present.
Van Rees.
Present.
Hancock.
Present.
Young.
Present.
Hager.
Present.
Evans.
Present.
Bradford.
Present.
Roten.
Present.
Syracuse. Present. Welsh.
Present.
Sledge.
Present.
Cash.
Present.
O'Connell. Roberts.
Present.
Taylor.
Present.
Hauser.
Present.
Druffel. Present. Murphy. Councilmember Murphy.
I believe she is doing.
Pulley.
Present.
Johnston.
Present.
Nash.
Present. Present.
Archer. Councilmember Vercher. Porterfield.
Present.
Sepulveda.
Present.
Rutherford.
Present.
Stiles. Councilmember Stiles.
Present.
Lee. Councilmember Lee. Henderson.
Present.
Rosenberg.
Here.
37 members present, Vice Mayor.
All right, you've got 37?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Is there a motion for adoption of the minutes of the meeting from August the 4th, 2020? Proper motion,
Second.
proper second. Without objection, the minutes of the meeting stand approved as written. Madam Clerk, are there any messages from the mayor?
No, Vice Mayor, there are no messages from the mayor.
All right. Councilmember Rosenberg, you are recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the August 18th, 2020 Metro Council meeting agenda constitutes essential business of this body and the metropolitan government, and that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Rosenberg. Properly seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? 37 to 0. Any corrections to that? That's the vote. Thank you, Chairman Rosenberg. All right. Councilmember Murphy had asked to be recognized early. Obviously, today is a very important day. And so I'm checking, did anybody talk to Councilmember Murphy about the resolution recognizing that today is the 100th anniversary when Tennessee approved the 19th Amendment on women's suffrage. So I will wait then, and so Councilmember Henderson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think Council Lady Murphy sends her regrets. She had, I believe, some flooding at her home and is unable to join us this evening. And as we know, she had surgery last week as well. So we send our best wishes to her. As you said, it's an auspicious occasion, August 18th, the centennial of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. And we, as a women's caucus in the body, in addition to a bevy of resolutions throughout this year, noting this historic moment, indeed have another resolution that acknowledges that while this vote was important for women, it did not afford the right to vote to all women. And so the resolution that we have brought this evening recognizes that and just the noteworthy history. So I thank Council Lady Murphy for organizing that. And with that, I just want to thank all our community partners today, the Public Library and others, the Hermitage Hotel, Centennial Park, the Women's Suffrage Monument, so many wonderful celebrations today for our city. Thank you.
So thank you, Councilmember Henderson. Actually, we were, if you would like, because of the importance of the day, I am happy to take Resolution RS 2020-498 out of order and hear it right now. Would you like to do that?
Vice Mayor, that's very kind. I don't have it open before me. And so I think we can bring it to a vote, but at present, I would need some additional time to organize a reading of that. So I don't have the resolution open before me at present.
Well, Councilmember Henderson, I can read the caption. It simply went to rules. So without objection, we are going to bring that up because it is an important day.
Yes,
and then I'll ask for comment. So Resolution RS 2020-498 by Murphy, Benedict, and others. It's a resolution recognizing the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment and women's constitutional right to vote. I'm going to go, Councilmember Henderson, all you have to do is ask for the committee reports, and we're on our own.
Committee reports, please, sir.
So it only went to rules. So Councilmember Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules voted 6 in favor, none against.
All right. Councilmember Henderson, I'm recognizing you for a motion to pass that resolution.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I appreciate the recognition. I also wanted to say that I see now in the queue Council Lady Murphy. And if I may, Vice Mayor, I would like to defer to her as our chair of the Women's Caucus.
I am certainly happy to defer to Councilmember Murphy. There you are, Councilmember Murphy. You're recognized. We're on your resolution.
Thank you so much. I appreciate Council Lady Henderson covering for me when I've had a house flood this afternoon, and so my remarks are going to be extra brief because I don't have them with me. Quite honestly, I'm in a car. So, but I appreciate everyone giving us the indulgence. The 50% of this council, the historic number of women on this council. This is our official women's caucus and women of the council resolution that, quite frankly, I filed for us a year ago. I think Ms. Seidlin can confirm for that, because this is a huge moment. This is recognizing that 100 years ago, the Tennessee state legislature, by one vote, was able to set women free and allow us, all American women, to participate in the political process that we had been previously shut out of. And it is just, it's hard to believe that someone who, as an elected woman now, it's hard to fathom a world that we were not included in politics and the political process, and what that would have looked like. I can't even imagine it. I don't want to imagine it, because I think when everyone is at the table and everyone is able to share their voice is when we truly have a democracy that is representative of the people. We still have work to do, all of us. It is not over. It did not end 100 years ago, and it is not over now. We still have more work to do to ensure that everyone has the right to vote and everyone exercises that right. And so thank you again, everyone, for this indulgence today and helping celebrate today. I know many of you participated in events. If you did not watch the reenactment done at the state legislature and the House today, I encourage you to go back and watch it. It brought tears to my eyes to see an African American woman singing to open that session today on the House floor. Wow. That was just very powerful. So again, I'm sorry to be on the fly with this. I appreciate all the women that I am serving with, and I am excited for all the women that have come before us and the women that will come after us. And as always, thank you for your support tonight on this resolution. And I hope all of you, this is not just for us. This is also for many of you have daughters, many of you have nieces, wives, friends, spouses, and others. And this is truly a celebration of our ability to participate in a representative government. So thank you so much. And with that, I'd move for approval.
Thank you, Councilmember Murphy. Again, it's a motion and it is properly seconded. We've got people in the queue. Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I want to echo the importance of this day and the celebrating the rights of women to vote. But I do not want us to finish without acknowledging, like Councilmember Murphy said, there's still a whole lot to be done. We're talking about women issues. It's 100 years after women had the right to vote. There's still a lot of things happening with women: domestic violence, sex trafficking, sexual assault. And I think that it's important for all of us to know that as we're congratulating and celebrating this milestone, we have to always know that we need to speak up against issues that are impacting women and girls in our community. And so let us celebrate, but the work continues. We need the guys to do it with us. And so we want to make sure that everything that is women, that we're working towards it and we're speaking up. Sexual assault in our community, trafficking, anything that is women issue, that we speak up against it and we continue to celebrate women in our society. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Allen, you had your hand up. Okay. And I've still got Councilmember Henderson's hands up. Do I need to come back to you? Councilmember Henderson? Okay. Councilmember Van Rees.
Yes, I just wanted to request that all those voting affirmative on this particular resolution be included as co-sponsors to the bill.
All right, thank you. We'll just assume that is going to happen. Nobody else is in the queue. Councilmember Murphy, any final comments? Your hand is still up.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I would actually like to defer to Council Lady Henderson, who has I think she has a little bit of my printed remarks, but if she would like to add anything, I'd like to defer to Council Lady Henderson. Otherwise, I think we can wrap it up.
All right, back to Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and I thank Council Lady Murphy for preparing for this evening. I did not recognize that I would be recognized so early to the start, but she kindly prepared some brief remarks, and that those touch on what I alluded to earlier about how this important vote did not, in fact, bring the vote for all women. Just to read Council Lady remarks as she is in transit right now. On August 18th, 1920, Tennessee became the 36th and final state to ratify the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Such a monumental feat would not have happened without the efforts of Nashvilleian in Dallas Dudley, who was a national leader in the suffragist movement. I'd also like to give, we as a Women's Caucus would like to give special attention to Juno Frankie Pierce and Maddie E. Coleman, two African American women who locally played a large part in helping women achieve the right to vote. Ms. Pierce was an educator and founder and superintendent of the Tennessee Vocational School for Colored Girls. Ms. Coleman graduated from Meharry Medical College in 1906 and became one of the nation's first Black female physicians. Together, these women helped to get 2,500 Black women to vote in the 1919 Nashville municipal elections, the city's first election in which Black women were eligible to vote. Ms. Pierce addressed the first convention of the Tennessee League of Women Voters, held at the state capitol in May of 1920. This meeting helped jumpstart the push for ratification of the 19th Amendment in Tennessee. One of our newest city parks is named after the trailblazing Frankie Pierce, and several new murals at the park celebrate her life and service to our community and her push for suffrage. So we encourage all our citizens to visit Frankie Pierce Park as well. And with that, Vice Mayor, we renew our motion for approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Henderson. We are ready to vote. We are on Resolution RS 2020-498 by Murphy, Benedict, and others. All those in favor of the resolution say aye.
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 That's an aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Bill passes. I will say that Councilmember Hall and Councilmember Vercher are on this call now. So it's 39 votes. It's 39 for, 0 against, 0 abstentions. 39 to 0 to 0. Thank you all. Thank you, Councilmember Murphy. Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. The resolution RS 2020-498 passes. And I appreciate everybody wearing special colors tonight, particularly yellow. I see lots of yellow roses, which was the sign that you were for the vote. And so anyway, we appreciate everybody's cooperation on that. All right, so on we go. So I'm going to give a notice of an election of a council member to the Short-Term Rental Appeals Board. You should have gotten a memo from me right before this meeting. The council is required to elect representatives from its membership to serve in various positions of leadership. On September 1st, 2020, at our next meeting, we will be electing one council member to serve as a member of the Short-Term Rental Appeals Board. The Short-Term Rental Appeals Board was created by ordinance number BL 2020-187, which was adopted at the July 7th, 2020 council meeting. This newly created board will hear and decide appeals from decisions made by the zoning administrator regarding short-term rental permits, whereby it is alleged in writing that the zoning administrator is in error or acted arbitrarily. Council member will serve as a member of the board for a term of 2 years. Nominations will be taken from the floor, and the vote will be held at the September 1st, 2020 council meeting. The council will also at some point vote on the mayor's nominees to the short-term, at the same meeting, Short-Term Rental Appeals Board at that meeting as well. All right, so if you are interested in running for that, that will be at the next meeting. All right, we are now ready to proceed to elections and confirmations. The first act of business tonight is to fill the vacancy on the Health and Educational Facilities Board. This vacancy is the result of the resignation of Ms. Shea Hendricks. Pursuant to state law, the individual selected to fill this vacancy will serve until the expiration of Ms. Hendricks' term on September 30th, 2024. Procedure for filling this vacancy is set forth in Council Rule number 50. Members of the council made nominations at the council meeting held on August the 4th, 2020. Nominees had to complete a questionnaire submitted to the clerk. Any nominee who failed to submit that questionnaire to the clerk by the deadline, which was August the 13th, 2020 at noon, would have been deemed to have withdrawn their name from nomination. The nominees were notified and they met with the council's Rules, Confirmations, and Public Elections Committee tonight. And we are now going to we are now going to have an election to fill the seat tonight. It's going to be conducted at the council meeting right now. So, and I will say that any nominee who failed to before the Rules Committee tonight would have been deemed to have withdrawn his or her name from nomination. We have 4 nominees tonight. Shell Baldwin, Kenitha Carr, Malika Klinkscales, and Joshua Haston. Those are the 4 nominees. So at this point, I'm going to turn to Councilmember Rosenberg so that we can get a report on the nominees from the Rules Committee. Councilmember Rosenberg, you're recognized on the nominees.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rules Committee interviewed all 4 candidates and voted 6 in favor, none against, each of them as being fully qualified.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Rosenberg. So here's how the election proceeds tonight. It's done pursuant to Rule 50. There is no discussion or speeches on the floor. Pursuant to Rule 50, Section 3, each vacancy will be filled by the top recipient of votes receiving 21 or more votes. So so we only are filling 1 slot tonight. They have to receive 21 or more votes. Without objection, because we have 4 candidates, we are going to proceed in this manner. Person receiving the largest number of votes shall be elected, provided that person receives 21 votes. If no one gets 21 votes on the first round, the top 2 candidates receiving the largest number of votes shall proceed to a runoff election. The vice mayor only votes in case of a tie when there are 2 candidates. All right? So again, what we will do tonight, again without objection, is because we have 4 candidates, we're going to proceed in the following manner. We're going to vote on all the 4 candidates. The clerk will call your name. And then what we will do is ask for your vote, confirm the vote with you, and then we will record the vote. 4 candidates, the person has to receive 21 votes. If on the first round no one gets 21 votes on that first round, 2 candidates receiving the largest number of votes shall proceed to a runoff election. Any questions before we proceed? All right, seeing none, again, the 4 nominees tonight: Shell Baldwin, Kenitha Carr, Malika Clinkscales, and Joshua Haston. Those are the 4 nominees tonight. So, Madam Clerk, if you would, we are going to take the roll. If you will call the members one at a time, and again, the clerk is going to call your name, ask for your vote, confirm the vote with you, and then we will record the vote. Madam Clerk, you're recognized.
Councilman Mendez.
Shelley Baldwin.
Ms. Hurt.
Hold on here.
Malinka Clinkscales. Allen.
Joshua Haston.
Glover.
Mrs. Carr.
Suara.
Malika Clinkscales.
Hall.
Councilmember Hall.
Kenitha Carr.
Mr. Toombs. Malika Clinkscales. Gamble.
Malika Clinkscales.
Swope.
Kalisha Carr.
Parker.
Baldwin.
Withers.
Joshua Haston.
Benedict.
Clinkscales.
Van Reese.
Joshua Haston.
Hancock.
Baldwin.
Young.
Baldwin.
Hager.
Haskins.
Haston.
Joshua Haskins. I'm saying that right.
Thank you. Evans.
Baldwin.
Bradford.
Kenitha Carr.
Roten.
Baldwin.
Syracuse.
Shelley Baldwin.
Welsh.
Haston.
Sledge.
Councilmember Sledge.
Should we come back, Vice Mayor? Cash.
Baldwin.
I'm sorry, Baldwin?
Yes, ma'am. Baldwin.
And this is Councilman Cash.
Yes.
Thank you. O'Connell?
Shelley Baldwin.
Roberts?
Shelley Baldwin.
Taylor?
Malika Clink-Scales.
Hauser? Councilmember Hauser?
Yes, sorry, Baldwin.
Okay. Druffel?
Malika.
Clink-Scales?
Correct.
Murphy?
Shelley Baldwin.
Pulley?
Haston.
Johnston?
Joshua Haston.
Nash?
Mr. Haston.
Bircher?
Malika Clink-Scales.
Porterfield?
Malika Clink-Scales.
Sepulveda?
Malika Clink-Scales.
Rutherford?
Baldwin.
Giles?
Malika Clink-Scales.
Lee?
Ms. Clink-Scales.
Henderson?
Tanitha Carr.
Rosenberg?
Shelley Baldwin.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, may we check with Councilmember Sledge?
Councilmember Sledge? Councilmember Sledge? Okay. Okay, we're going to take the vote. All right, so the vote total is Shell Baldwin received 14 votes. Kanitha Carr received 5 votes. Malika Clink-Scales received 12 votes. And Joshua Haston received 8 votes. The 2 individuals in the runoff, the 2 individuals, the highest total is Shell Baldwin and Malika Clink-Scales. So those will be the 2 individuals that will run off to see who is selected to the Health and Education Board. So, Madam Clerk, we are going to do this again. Again, council members, we're going to go back to the roll, and we are voting between Shell Baldwin and Malika Clink-Scales. Madam Clerk, you're recognized.
Mendez?
Shelley Baldwin.
Hurt? Clink-Scales? Allen?
Clink-Scale.
Glover?
Baldwin.
Suara?
Clink-Scales.
Hall?
Baldwin.
Toombs? Clink-Scales? Gamble?
Clink-Scales.
Swope?
Baldwin.
Parker?
Baldwin.
Baldwin? Withers?
Baldwin.
Benedict?
Clink-Scales.
Van Rees?
Clink-Scales.
Hancock?
Baldwin.
Young?
Baldwin.
Hager?
Baldwin.
Evans?
Baldwin.
Bradford?
Baldwin.
Roden,
Shelley Baldwin.
Syracuse,
Baldwin.
Welsh,
Baldwin.
Sledge,
Baldwin.
Cash,
Baldwin.
O'Connell,
Baldwin.
Robert,
Baldwin.
Taylor,
Malika Clinkscales.
Hauser,
Baldwin.
Druffel,
Malika Clinkscale.
Murphy,
Shelley Baldwin.
Pulley,
Baldwin.
Johnston,
Baldwin.
Nash,
Ms. Baldwin.
Bircher,
Clinkscales.
Porterfield,
Malika Clinkscales.
Sepulveda,
Clinkscales.
Rutherford,
Baldwin.
Stiles,
Clinkscales.
Lee,
Ms. Clinkscale.
Henderson,
Baldwin,
Rosenberg.
Shelley Baldwin.
So I'm pronouncing her name, Shell Baldwin. It's Shelley Baldwin. Ms. Baldwin received 26 votes, and Malika Clinkscales received 14 votes. Shelley Baldwin is elected to the Health and Education Facilities Board. Congratulations, Ms. Baldwin. I will say that it's my understanding that two of these positions will be coming up in the near future. I'm not sure if people are running for re-election, but we understand that there may be two more coming for those positions. So again, Shelley Baldwin, congratulations. And to all the other candidates who ran, thank you for being a part of this. We appreciate your participation in working to make Metro a better place. So Ms. Carr, Ms. Clinkscales, and Mr. Haston, we very much appreciate your participation. Chairman Rosenberg, do we have a report on the rest of elections and confirmations?
We do, Mr. President. We have the Historic Zoning Commission, the appointment of Dr. Lee Williams for a term expiring June 1st, 2022, filling the unexpired term of Ms. LaDonna Boyd, and rules voted 6 in favor, none against.
All right, can I have a motion? Chairman Rosenberg?
I move approval.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve, properly seconded for Dr. Lee Williams. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing nobody in the queue, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? The vote is 40-0. Any corrections to that? Dr. Lee Williams has been appointed to the Historic Zoning Commission. Congratulations, Dr. Williams. And on behalf of the entire Metro Council, we thank you for your willingness to serve and to volunteer your time and expertise in terms of trying to make Metro and Davidson County a better place. So thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you, Chairman Rosenberg, for your help on those things. So we now move to resolutions on the consent agenda. And what I will do is I'm going to go through and list the items that are on the consent agenda tonight. I'll read the resolution numbers, and then I'll come back and see if anything needs to be bumped. Again, these are matters on the consent agenda for tonight. Here they go. Resolution RS 2020-469, RS 2020-481, 482, 483, 484, 485, 486, 487, 488, 489, 490, 491, 492, 493, 494, 495, 497, and 499. We have already taken care of 498. Okay, so I'm looking to see if anything needs to be bumped. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to bump RS 2020-491 as well as RS 2020-492.
So 491 and 492 are both bumped? Okay.
Vice Mayor?
All right. All right. I'm looking. Who is that?
It is Councilwoman Stiles. I am having difficulty with my computer, so I can't see what the number of my resolution is regarding the 30th anniversary of the American Disabilities Act. I would like to hold that, please.
499, 2020, 499. You want to bump that? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay, seeing nobody else in the queue, I'm going to read the captions of the items on the consent calendar. Resolution RS 2020-469, Pledge Murphy and Henderson. Resolution to amend ordinance number BL 2020-163 to authorize the Metropolitan Government to abandon additional easement rights for property located at 1131 4th Avenue South. Resolution RS 2020-481 by Mendes, Rosenberg, and others. Resolution accepting a grant from the State of Tennessee Division of Elections to the Metropolitan Government through the Election Commission to provide assistance to county election commissions to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus during the 2020 election cycle. Resolution RS 2020-482 by Mendes, Hager, and others. A resolution approving an application for an Our Town grant for the National Endowment for the Arts to the Metropolitan Government acting through the Metropolitan Arts Commission to create a series of temporary and permanent public artworks that will increase public safety, provide much-needed employment opportunities and job training, and will be co-designed by the North Nashville neighborhood community. RS 2020-483, Mendes, Hager, and Hancock. Resolution accepting a grant from the State of Tennessee to the Arts Commission to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Arts Commission for general operating support to expand, improve, and develop the arts in Tennessee. Resolution RS 2020-484. By Councilmember Mendes, a resolution authorized the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Augustine Collier against the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County in the amount of $20,000 to be paid out of the Self-Insured Liability Fund. Resolution RS 2020-485 by Welsh and Sawara, resolution approving a contract for tobacco prevention program services between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County through the Metropolitan Board of Health and the Tennessee Department of Health to provide counseling and non-cash voucher incentives to pregnant and postpartum women and eligible household members. Resolution RS 2020-486 by Mendes, Welsh, and others. A resolution accepting a grant from the State of Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting through the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide oral disease prevention services for school children in grades K through 8 in qualifying public schools. Resolution RS 2020-487 by Councilmember Mendes. Resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Robert Geiger against the Metropolitan Government in the amount of $13,000, said amount to be paid out of the Self-Insured Liability Fund. Resolution RS 2020-488, Mendes and Pulley. Resolution accepting emergency management performance grant from the State of Tennessee, Tennessee Emergency Management Agency, to the Metro Government through the Office of Emergency Management to subsidize the Emergency Management Program. Resolution RS 2020-489, Pulley, Hurt, and others. Resolution approving a reciprocity agreement by and between the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department and Nashville State Community College, allowing qualifying students of Nashville State Community College to attend the MNPD Training Academy and receive 30 hours of college course credits upon graduation from the Training Academy. Resolution RS 2020-490 by Councilmember Mendes. A resolution authorized the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Shamusadine Ikusumi against the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County in the amount of $14,100, said amount to be paid out of the Self-Insured Liability Fund. Resolution RS 2020-493 by Mendes, Henderson, and others. Resolution approving Amendment 1 to a grant from the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation to the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan Nashville Public Works Department to conduct a comprehensive litter awareness and reduction campaign involving various community partners and a roundtable of government agencies. Resolution RS 2020-494, Bradford, Mendez, and others. Resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting through the Department of Water and Sewer Services, to enter into a utility relocation contract with the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation. Resolution RS 2020-495 by Bradford, Mendez, and others. A resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting through the Department of Water and Sewer Services, to enter into a utility relocation contract with the State of Tennessee. Resolution RS 2020-497 by Council Members Sledge and Murphy. It's a resolution recognizing the 25th anniversary of Marguerite Sewing School. Believe that's it from the consent calendar. Again, anything that needs to be bumped? Okay, seeing none, we are ready for committee reports. I'm going to go first to Councilmember Mendez. You're recognized for Budget and Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The committee recommended approval of RS 2020-481, 82, 83, 84, 86, 87, 88, 490, 493, 494, and 495. All of those were recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Mendez. Councilmember Hurt, you recognize, let's see, where are you? There you are. You're recognized for Health and Hospitals.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Health, Hospitals, and Social Services Committee voted for RS 2020-485, 486, 4 in favor and 0 against, and 496 was deferred by rule.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Hurt. I've got Parks, Library, and Arts. Councilmember Hager.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. RS 2020-482, RS 2020-483. Those passed 7-4, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Hager. Councilmember Murphy, Planning and Zoning.
Hello, Vice Mayor. This is Vice Chair Sile, since Chair Murphy is not here. And so we had Resolution 2020-450 that was on consent to defer one meeting. RS 2020-469, that was consent for approval. RS 2020-494 was also consent for approval. RS 2020-495, consent for approval. And that is all.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Stiles. Councilmember Pulley, you recognized for Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Vice Chair Johnston will give that report. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Safety Beer and Regulated Beverages addressed RS 2020-488 and 489, and on both of those voted 6 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Johnston. Councilmember Henderson, Public Works. Now, Councilmember Henderson, you are muted. There you go.
My apologies, sir. Public Works Committee considered resolutions 469, 493, 494, and 495, and recommended approval for all of them, 10 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Henderson. And Councilmember Rosenberg, you're recognized for Rules and Confirmations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules voted, considered 481, 497, 499, voted 6 in favor, none against on all of them, and I move approval of the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Rosenberg. Got a motion properly seconded. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Look and see nobody in the queue. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Vote is 44, 0 against, 0 abstentions. That's the vote. Any changes on that? Consent calendar passes. Okay, so we are now ready for back to items that were taken off of consent. We're back to Resolution RS 2020-450 by Councilmember Druffel, Mendez, and others. The resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement by and between the State of Tennessee, Department of Transportation, and the Metropolitan Government acting by and through its Department of Public Works for the reimbursement of railroad crossing safety improvements at Post Road. Councilmember Druffel, you are recognized. There you are.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee reports, please.
All right. So I've got Budget and Finance. Councilmember Mendez.
At the request of the lead sponsor, the committee recommended a one-meeting deferral, 11 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Stiles. Councilmember Stiles, you are muted. We are on RS 2020-450. And you're still muted. All right. Does anybody know what happened on this bill in Planning and Zoning 2020-450? It should have been deferred.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Suara.
I think that when Councilmember Stiles was giving a report, she did mention 450 first, and she did say it was deferred before going to the ones that were approved.
All right. Okay. So we've got it, so that's good. Thank you, Councilmember Suara. All right, Public Works, Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. At the request of the sponsor, we actually had a letter requesting a withdrawal. And so we recommended the same, 10 in favor, 0 against.
All right. I'm going to go to Councilmember Druffel. You're recognized.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. This is a complicated intersection. It's taken some time to come back with improvements and the cost with those improvements. I was not too sure what the best avenue was. I think best is to go one meeting deferral at this point. But yeah, I did look at withdrawal at one time, waiting for more time to get a better idea of costs and improvements.
All right. So the motion is to defer one meeting?
Yes, sir.
All right. The motion is to defer one meeting, properly seconded. Councilmember Glover, you're recognized.
Just a point of order on this, Vice Mayor. Does it need to be redirected back to the committee since one of the committee's reports was to have it withdrawn?
I believe that every committee, yeah, it should automatically.
It will automatically. Okay. All right. Thank you, Vice.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Anybody else in the queue? Okay, the motion is to defer this one meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. If you object, say no. Any abstentions? Vote is 44, 0 against, 0 abstentions. That's the vote. Any corrections to that?
Yes. Oh, well.
Okay. So, Councilmember Murphy, are you still on? Okay. So the vote is actually 39 for, 0 against, 0 abstentions. Any corrections to that? That's the vote. Thank you, Councilmember Druffel. The bill is deferred one meeting. We're now on Resolution RS 2020-480 by Councilmembers Glover and Swope. Resolution providing amendments to the Charter of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, Tennessee, in accordance with Article 19, Section 19.01 thereof, and setting forth a brief description of each amendment to be placed upon the ballot. Councilmember Glover, you're recognized.
Committee reports, please, sir.
All right. Charter revision. Councilmember Roden or Councilmember Rosenberg? Who's got that one? Councilmember Rosenberg, do you have it? Or
Mr. Vice Mayor, it's Councilmember Roden. I was given the report. It's 6 in favor, 0 against, an indefinite deferral.
All right. So the vote out of the committee was an indefinite deferral. I'm going to go to Councilmember Glover.
And I will go ahead and agree with the indefinite deferral. However, I will ask Mr. Cooper to go ahead and convene the Charter Commission, because I do plan on bringing this back for discussion. So if we could do that, that was one reason we were going to defer it tonight, was to let the commission come together and then bring it back to the Charter Committee. So I will move to defer indefinitely.
Mr. Cooper.
Council members, I was advised by the clerk that a Charter Revision Commission meeting has been set for September 11th to consider this matter.
All right, so the motion is to defer indefinitely, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion to defer indefinitely? Councilmember
Thanks, Mr. Vice Mayor. Just a question for Mr. Cooper. Is there, I mean, I just don't know how the rules work. The Charter Revision Commission can consider legislation that's not pending?
Yes, the Charter Revision Commission can actually meet to consider any charter-related matter, whether there's anything pending or not. So, yeah, I mean, they can meet if they choose to.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Rosenberg, you're recognized. You are muted. There you go.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Cooper, this was indefinitely deferred without the consent of the sponsor, so this will need to be requested to be put back on the agenda for a vote at the heel of a meeting, correct?
So the rule actually says that the indefinite deferral has to be over the objection of the sponsor. And technically in the Rules Committee, there was no opportunity for an objection from the sponsor. So I think arguably it could be brought back at any time without going through the process outlined in Rule 8, specifically because there was no actual objection from a sponsor.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So again,
if I may, Vice Mayor, I just moved to defer indefinitely, so I did not object to what the committee did. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay, so the motion is to defer indefinitely at the request of the sponsor. Again, it was properly seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing nobody else in the queue. All those in favor of the motion to defer indefinitely say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? 39 to 0 to 0. Any corrections to that vote? Okay, motion to defer indefinitely passes. We're now on Resolution RS 2020-491 by Council Members Mendez and Pulley. Resolution approving an application for the Edwin Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant from the United States Department of Justice to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department for specialized training and equipment to ensure personnel maintain needed certifications for criminal investigations and crime reduction initiatives. Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized.
Thank you. The Budget and Finance Committee report was to recommend approval, 11 in favor, 0 against, and I need the Public Safety Committee report.
All right, Public Safety, Councilmember Johnson.
Public Safety voted 6 in favor, 0 against, in favor.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Councilmember Mendez.
I'll move approval. I know at least Councilman O'Connell has comments that I'm interested in.
Okay, so I got a motion to approve, properly seconded. I'm looking at the board. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't materially object to anything about the grant application itself. We've been doing these Byrne grants for several years, but look back at the history, it's interesting. Up through 2000, Metro has participated in this program. These grants used to go to a variety of departments, including the Police Department, Parks and Recreation, Office of the District Attorney, Office of the Public Defender, Davids County Juvenile Court, State Trial Courts, Justice Immigration Services, the Sheriff's Office, MNPS, basically a variety of beneficiaries for these grant funds. And then in 2008, we started only appropriating the funds to the benefit of the Metro Nashville Police Department. I don't know if Metro Finance or the administration or the police department as the lead applicant is the right entity to ask this question, but I'd just love to better understand if there was something about the grant application process that changed this, or if it seems to me that this is a remarkably good way to secure revenue for multiple departments, and I don't know how we fell out of the habit of, or the practice of ensuring that we are maximizing the ability to use this grant to the benefit of Metro.
I don't know if there's anybody on that can answer that.
So we're not sure if anybody is on the phone to answer that question.
Councilman Mendez raised his hand.
Councilor Mendez, you're recognized.
If there's nobody that can answer that question, I'm happy to defer it for a meeting so we can get that addressed.
We have a couple other hands. Councilmember Nash, your hand showed up. Do you know the answer to the question? You're muted as well. Councilmember Nash?
Yes, back in 2008, I was probably part of the group because I was in planning at the time, has applied for that grant. As memory serves, but I honestly can't say for sure the answer, but I think the grants were cut back sufficiently so that the monies available, for the most part, were used up by the police department. I'm sure we didn't turn anybody away that wanted to participate if they could participate in the grant at that time. And I'd be careful about deferral only because so many of these grants are time specific. We have to rush them through council often. So unless there's
just point of order, Mr. President, no, never mind. I guess it's not actually a point of order. Sorry.
Thank you, Councilmember Nash. We're looking for information. Mr. Jameson, Mike Jameson from the mayor's office, can't unmute, so he can't answer your question.
Can't or won't, Mr. President?
Well, I can't find that one out either because he can't unmute.
Vice Mayor? Vice Mayor, can you hear me now?
Here he is. Okay, Mr. Jameson, you're recognized.
I apologize for that, probably on my end. Councilman O'Connell and I and Captain Gilders and Lieutenant Stevens had a good exchange earlier today regarding the equipment, the nature of the equipment, which consists of exercise equipment, night vision replacements, and video equipment. Got Councilman O'Connell's questions regarding the difference between 2008 recipients and post-2008 recipients after committees had started. So here's what little information I was able to gather from Captain Gilder and others. Since 2008, there actually have been several resolutions that did appropriate to other departments besides the police department, at least a half dozen, some of which went to the sheriff, some to the trial court, state trial court, some to multiple departments, at least one to the public defender's office. At some point, JAG was part of a larger local law enforcement block grant that used to be very large, multi-million dollars in size, $3 million as much. JAG then broke out and essentially consisted of much smaller grants around the $400,000 realm, and the police department sought those. That is not to the exclusion of other departments, as we've seen in at least a half dozen resolutions since 2008. And part of that is because there are now two mechanisms from which you can apply for and receive JAG funding. The state, where actually 60% of the funding is received by direct application, and Metro, which is only 40%. So Metro departments can still apply directly to the state outside of this process. And in fact, right now, the library has a current JAG grant applied directly to the state of Tennessee. Realize that this is information gotten on the fly, so I did confirm that if there's any lingering concern, there is an application deadline, but a 1 meeting extension would not disrupt that approval.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jameson.
Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Thank you, Mr. President. For me personally, that answers my question satisfactorily. I do not personally have a need to defer with that new information.
All right. Thank you, Council Member. I've got other people in the queue. Council Member Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I requested for details of what the grants will be covering yesterday in budget. I think Mr. Jameson alluded to it, but I wanted to go on record as there's so much concern over the militarization of our police department. I think the grants just being silent and saying some equipment, I thought it was important for us to get clarification on that. I was able to get the letter, and it did say that majority of the money is for training, and the equipment that is involved is for video equipment and some minor equipment. And so I thought that is very important that we do address that and to be able to put that on record. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Council Member. Council Member Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. That was an old hand. I was going to provide the insight to Councilman O'Connell's question as it related to the separation in the JAG grant. And these grants aren't nothing new. This grant to Councilwoman Suarez's question, I know she got some of the answers, is equipment. Is not military issue grade equipment. This is vision goggles and for training. Our police officers, we need to make sure that they are always having a level of readiness for public safety. I just want to add that there is no match on this grant either. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Vercher. Councilmember Pulley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. It looks like everybody summed up most of what I wanted to say. In addition, what I would say is that Captain Gilder provided a spreadsheet which all of the Public Safety Committee members have that details every single item. And I've looked through this thoroughly, and there's really a lot of, there's no equipment in there that would raise to the level of concern about militarization. Some of the equipment's already been discussed. But in addition, this grant pays for a lot of training that is necessary for police officers to maintain their certifications. And this is necessary equipment that otherwise is going to be paid for out of the taxpayers' budget. So it's slightly less than a $500,000 grant, as Mr. Jameson articulated. The separation of what used to be a grant that was available to other departments. So I would urge that we not defer this and move on and pass it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Pulley. That's it in the queue. We have a motion to approve. It's RS 2020-491. It was properly seconded. Anybody else in the queue? Seeing none, we're voting on RS 2020-491. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Any abstentions?
Vice Mayor, this is Councilwoman Benedict. I abstain.
Okay. Vote is 38-0-1. 38-0-1. Any corrections to that? Okay. RS 2020-491 passes. Resolution RS 2020-492 by Mendes, Pulley, and others. Resolution approving an application for a DNA capacity enhancement for backlog reduction grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to the Metropolitan Government, acting through the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department, to outsource sexual assault kits to private vendors for forensic case sample analysis to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the forensic biology unit. Councilmember Mendes, you're recognized.
Thank you. The Budget and Finance Committee recommended approval, 11 in favor, 0 against, and I would ask for the Public Safety Committee report.
Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Johnston.
Public Safety Beer and Regulated Beverages Committee voted 6 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized.
Move approval.
Motion to approve, properly seconded. Any discussion on this one? Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very happy to accept money for this purpose. But you know, my sense here is that the backlog that we have endured here in the whole process of analyzing rape kits is actually more than purely resources. And I don't know if somebody, whether the administration or, you know, again, another part of our criminal legal apparatus might be able to speak to this, but can we get an update? I think this is an appropriate moment to get an update on the status of Nashville's backlog of rape kits.
So I'm not sure if anybody's on the phone who can answer that one. Mr. Jamison, can you hear me?
I can, Vice Mayor. I don't have that answer at the moment, but I will absolutely get the information in the morning and submit that to Councilman O'Connell and copy all other council members.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you. And I, Mr. President, to that end, I don't need to slow this resolution. I feel like this, as we are seeing that we are accepting more resources for this, I want to make sure that we also are making the procedural changes necessary to basically seek justice more rapidly for victims of sexual violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I tend to support this resolution also. My concerns rest on privacy for victims and who we are contracting with in terms of chain of evidence, and what sort of safeguards are included in this process to make sure that victims are treated fairly and equitably, and their privacy is maintained so that they can go through the whole legal process and feel safe, and that they are going to get a fair outcome based on the evidence in hand. So I'm not sure who I addressed that question to, but perhaps Councilmember Mendez can speak to that.
Councilmember Mendez?
I would have to defer to the administration, or I know Councilman Hager practices in this area, criminal defense, but I would have to defer to the administration.
All right. Mr. Jamison?
Vice Mayor, I will simply add that information to the response I submit tomorrow morning, if that is satisfactory to Councilmember Welsh. I would take just 10 seconds, Vice Mayor, with your indulgence, to alert council members that Lieutenant Stevens and Captain Gilder were at both the Budget and Finance Committee meeting and the Public Safety Committee meeting, prepared to answer any and all questions. They are not here at the regular meeting, as you would not expect. And to the extent council members can submit questions to committee meetings, those questions that require a little bit of data search, we can absolutely have them more time if submitted in committee.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jamison. Councilmember Welsh?
No, thank you, Mr. Jamison. I look forward to the answers of those questions. As someone who worked with rape and sexual assault victims for many years here at the Rape and Sexual Assault Center, this is something that's very important to me, and I want to make sure that all victims of sexual assault are treated fairly and system, which as little pushback as possible from the legal system itself. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I look forward to your answers.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. You know, I agree with what with what Mr. Jameson said. You know, we had 2 police representatives at the Budget and Finance meeting and at the Public Safety meeting on separate days, and they really fielded no questions about either one of these grants. But I do have some information to Councilman O'Connell's question. There has been a backlog of the sexual assault tests. The backlog was up to 1,000 before they contracted. The outsourcing, because they did not have enough scientists at the MNPD lab to handle these. So rather than staying backlogged and getting caught up, they've gotten that number down to 300, and now they're renewing this effort to try to further get that backlog down. So they were up to 1,000, down to 300, and now they're moving forward in an effort to continue down that road. So That's the information I have, and I would urge approval of this bill resolution.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Pulley. Councilmember Welch, your hand's back up.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, I forgot to take it down.
All right. Let's see. That is everybody in the queue. We're on the resolution RS 2020-492. Nobody else in the queue. All those in favor of the resolution say aye.
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 Opposed? I've got a no vote. Was that a no? Any abstentions? All right, so now the vote is 39 to 0 to 0. Is that right? Any corrections? 39 to 0 to 0. That's the vote. RS 2020-492 passes. All right, we're now on resolution RS 2020-496 by Councilmember Hall. Resolution requesting the Director of Finance to take the appropriate action to recoup all funds appropriated in the fiscal year 2021 in the operations budget to the Metropolitan Housing Hospital Authority that were also covered by Federal CARES Act and other COVID-19 related funding sources. Councilmember Hall, you're recognized.
Committee report, please.
Budget and Finance, Councilmember Mendez.
The committee recommended deferral at the request of the sponsor, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, Health and Hospitals, Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The health hospitals and social services voted in favor of a deferral as by rule. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it's deferred by rule. Councilmember Hall, back to you. It's deferred by rule. Okay, so it's a one meeting.
So, can you hear me?
Hall?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's an automatic deferral by rule. All right.
Correct.
Okay. So it'll show up on next meeting's calendar. We've got resolution RS 2020-499 by Councilmember Stiles, Bradford, and others. A resolution recognizing the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Colleagues, I wanted to take this moment to mention the 30th anniversary of the American Disabilities Act and just be grateful because we have this opportunity. It's providing our other abled individuals, I prefer to call other abled than disabled, with the opportunity to receive fair access to employment, to housing, as well as public and private facilities, and not the least of which would be accessibility with sidewalks. And I wanted at this moment to turn it over to Councilmember Henderson because she did want to make some remarks in regards to public works and this resolution.
So first of all, Councilmember Stiles.
Committee reports, darn it.
Committee report, rules and confirmation. Councilmember Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules voted 6 in favor, none against.
All right, Councilmember Stiles, back to you. I need a motion on the resolution.
I'd like to move for approval, please.
Okay, so I got a motion to approve the resolution, properly seconded. All right, Councilmember Henderson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. This was also referred to Public Works Committee, and we recommended approval, 10 in favor, 0 against. And we referred that to our committee, as Council Lady Stiles said, because ADA has so many implications on our public right-of-way. And the safety of all our citizens in getting where they need to go. Nashville was for many years under a consent decree, and that really did kind of push forward much of our sidewalk repair work. But I did just want to take the opportunity of this resolution and thank Councilman Stiles for bringing it to acknowledge the ADA staff. They're under the umbrella of general services colleagues, but they engage not just facilities, but also review our work in the public right of way. So I wanted to thank the leader, head of that division, Mr. Jerry Hall, Mr. David Lyles, and Mr. Sean Hinton, who do ADA work for Metro, and recognize them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. Looking through the queue, seeing if anybody else is in there. Seeing nobody else, we are on Resolution RS 2020-499. Again, it was properly seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Bill passes 39-0 to 0. 39 to 0 to 0. So we have two late filed resolutions. I'm going to read the caption on the first one. This is by Councilmember Sepulveda. It's a resolution proposing recommendations by the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee for distribution of $2.5 million in CARES Act funds from the COVID-19 Pandemic Fund to provide food assistance for Davidson County residents to be administered by the Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee. So that's a late filed resolution. I'm going to go to Councilmember Sepulveda. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
All right. So did you go? I think you had to go to the Rules Committee first because it is late filed. Councilmember Rosenberg, did you all take this one up?
Thank you, Mr. President. We considered whether it was appropriate to suspend the rules to late file, and nobody had an issue.
Okay. But Councilmember Sepulveda, I'm going to go back to you so we can suspend the rules, and then assuming we do that, then I can get to the Budget Committee report. Okay? So Councilmember Sepulveda, need a motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules.
All right. So you've heard the motion by Councilmember Sepulveda. Is there any objection to suspension of the rules to hear this one tonight? Seeing none, the rules are suspended. Councilmember Sepulveda, you're on your resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So here we have, we as a committee decided that we wanted to allocate $2.5 million to address food shortage. And we are making Second Harvest the administrator of this with a 3% administrative fee, which is the same that they currently have under the state of Tennessee. And this is to address some of the issues that the Equity Alliance has brought up in their study. They did find that 60% of those who were surveyed did not know how to access food assistance. And in COVID hotspots, 23% needed food assistance and 15 overall in Nashville. And they surveyed about a little over 3,000 people with a 5% response rate. And so it's mainly to purchase the food, to transport the food, and for refrigeration. And as we all know, we are going through some tough times. And so I would encourage this body to vote in favor so we could start getting some much needed help out to the community.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. I need a committee report from the Budget Committee. So Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized.
The committee considered this and recommended approval, 12 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Back to you, Councilmember Sepulveda, for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
All right. So I got a motion to approve, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve on the resolution? Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Yes, this bill also came before Health and Hospitals, and considering that many of the people that were surveyed are in the North Nashville community, they were hit with the tornado as well. So I just encourage colleagues to realize that this has been a double blow to many people. And in my organization, there has been a double need for food services. I mean, people are coming every week getting food because the shortage is definitely real. And Health and Hospitals did vote 6 in favor and 0 against.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Hurt, because it wasn't in my notes that it comes in front of Health. So thank you for the report. All right. So any further discussion on the resolution by Councilmember Sepulveda? Seeing no other hands, we're ready to vote. We're on Councilmember Sepulveda's late filed resolution on the CARES Act funding. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Any abstentions? 39-0 to 0. That's the vote. Any corrections to that? Motion passes. All right, we're on the second late file resolution. That's a resolution approving a clinical research contract between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Madison County, acting bond through the Metropolitan Board of Health, and Clinical Research Associates for Phase 3 COVID-19 vaccine testing by Councilmember Hurt. Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I move to suspend the rules, please.
All right, so let me get a report from the Rules Committee. Councilmember Rosenberg, did this come before your committee? Councilmember Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did not have any issue with the late file.
Okay. So Councilmember Hurt has moved to suspend the rules to get this matter before us tonight. Any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing none, rules are suspended. Councilmember Hurt, you're on your resolution.
Yes, this resolution basically is just approving for there to be a contract agreement between our health department and the Clinical Research Associates in search of a vaccine for COVID-19. The Clinical Research Associates they have a great record of working in this field for over 30 years. They are also used by Meharry Medical College. Vanderbilt is also working on a vaccine, but they're working with another company. So the company is a very reputable one. Dr. Caldwell was on a call and talked about the need and the intent of trying to get the most efficient and effective drugs that they could to try to help stop this virus. And they're going to work with some great people. Our former director, Dr. Stephanie Bailey, is going to provide some of the services. And there's also a TB infectious disease physician at Meharry, Dr. Joanna Shaw Hakai, who's also going to be helping with those services. So the health committee voted 6 in favor and 0 against, and I encourage my colleagues to support it.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Hurt. So Health Committee report was 6-0. Councilmember Hurt, motion to approve. Got a motion to approve, properly seconded. Councilmember Swope, you're recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. I need to be marked as abstaining on this vote.
Okay, so Councilmember Swope will be abstaining on this vote.
Thank you.
Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
President, I just curious, I don't know if maybe somebody from health is the best person to answer this. Has Metro Public Health Department administered a clinical trial like this before?
So I'm not sure if anybody is on the call that can answer that. Mr. Jameson, do you know?
I do not know, Vice Mayor. I can add that to the repertoire I'll be submitting this morning.
All right.
In the discussion that we had, I had a meeting with Dr. Caldwell, and the health department themselves actually do not provide the clinical trials. They do use an outside vendor, such as Clinical Research Associates, but Dr. Caldwell himself has over 20 years of working with clinical trials research. And they are working in conjunction with Meharry Medical College, and which is a typical partnership in this type of work.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Hurt. Councilmember O'Connell, back to you. Councilmember O'Connell. All right, well, he is now muted. All right, so Councilmember Suarez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to add that I met with with Dr. Caldwell and the team about this specifically, and the answer is that they will not be doing any of the clinical trials, and that they will just be there in case any of the patients have any follow-up need for medical care. That's what they will be doing. I also check about liability, because if we're using Metro staff, will Metro be exposed? And I was told that no, there will be no liability on the part of Metro. The other thing that I also check with them also is that since they will be using their time and effort on this project, and they're supposed to also be working for Metro, I do make sure that the work that they're doing is not impacted. and that they're still doing what they need to do. And the answers to all of those questions were yes. The other thing that I also checked, and which was also important, is that they will not be actively recruiting Metro Department patients for the clinical trials. The patient that will be involved will be on a voluntary basis. So basically, they're just there to act in the capacity of advisors or consultants if anything goes wrong. And my understanding is that there will be other medical personnel, maybe another 100 or 500. They said I'm not sure of that number, but those were my questions. I work with PIs at Meharry that do clinical trials, and I wanted to make sure that we're not assuming any liability or also putting our Metro patients as automatic candidates for the trial, and all those were no liability, no Metro patients, and they're not doing the trials themselves. So I hope that answers the question for everyone.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Sawara. Councilmember O'Connell, back to you. We lost you for just a minute. Any other questions?
No, that's all. Thanks.
All right. Nobody else in the queue. We are on Councilmember Hurt's resolution regarding this testing for COVID-19. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? We got one. Councilmember Swope. Anybody else? The vote is 38-0-1. 38-0-1. Any corrections to that? Thank you, Councilmember Hurt. Resolution passes. We're now on bills on first reading. So any bills that need to be taken off of first reading?
Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Yes, Vice Mayor, I would like to take BL 2019-11 off consent, please.
All right, 2019-11 comes off of the bills on first reading. Anything else? Seeing none others.
Mr. President.
Who is that?
It's Councilmember Taylor.
Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized. Councilmember Taylor? Yeah, and you're muted.
Mr. President?
Councilmember Taylor.
Okay, thank you. I would like to take Bill 2024-20 off of consent.
Okay, 2024-20 comes off of first reading. It'll be handled separately. Councilmember Welsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I would like to take 2024-03 off consent.
No, where is it? So you're taking 2024-03, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Seeing none, if there's no objection, we'll consider all other ordinances on first reading in one vote at one time. Got a motion to approve, properly seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Any abstentions? All right. The vote is 39-0. Any corrections to that? So that passes all the bills on introduction first reading, except for the three that we will take up separately. The first bill up is BL 2019-11 by Councilmembers Allen, Toombs, and Young. It's an ordinance approving Amendment 3 to the ground lease for Rose Park between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville, acting bond through the Department of Parks and Recreation and Belmont University, approving a new ground lease between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting through the Board of Public Education and Belmont University for the construction and operation of an indoor batting and locker training facility. Councilmember Allen, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment and then also make an announcement of a public hearing, if I may. So first, I would like to move the amendment, please.
All right, so Councilmember Allen has moved an amendment. I believe it's in your package, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is a bill that came before us back in October and was deferred indefinitely so that a lot of work could be done. I'm not sure we're entirely through. As you've seen in your emails, there are still concerns that neighbors want to continue to address, so that I hope to continue those conversations, but I am eager to at least get on public record some of the work that has been done, and this amendment reflects some important changes that have been made to this lease agreement. They are currently in the process also of being considered by the school board. They met and had some comments which have been incorporated, and that some of those are reflected here. It changes the length of the lease, the financial terms, and also makes very specific that that MNPS will be very intentional about making sure that this benefits the community directly around the area. So I would like to move this amendment, and then as we've promised the neighbors, there will be a public hearing on second reading at the beginning of September. I want to make that official, and then if we need to continue working on it before and after then, I will continue to do that to try to address all the concerns that have been brought up through the conversations that we've had in the months since this was first introduced.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. So we've got a motion to adopt the amendment on 2019-11. It's properly seconded. We have people in the queue. Councilmember Hart, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. You know, I want to really thank the sponsor for all of the hard work that she has done with this particular bill. I recall being at a Parks Board meeting probably close to 2 years ago when this was first initiated, and there were some concerns with the school board and some members from the school board, and I know that meetings were held time and time again, and the sponsor was there working through this. A lot of concessions have been made. In situations like this, like the previous development that they had at Rose Park, you're not going to get 100%, but this is something, and some of those pillars of that particular community that I look to, like Brenda Morrow, I know that these kinds of developments have been very good for those kids in that community. So I want to thank the sponsor for all the work that she's done. And I just want to stand and say that I am standing with her in support of this and encouraging her to continue to work to make sure that as many people as she possibly can to be satisfied with this. But I definitely believe that it is a good thing for that community.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Hart. Councilmember Cash, you're recognized.
Thank you. I also want to thank Councilmember Allen for all the work that she's done on this. I went to at least three community meetings last fall and winter. They were well attended. There was a lot of rich discussion. Notes were kept about the concerns that community members had. And I commend Belmont. I know there are still things to discuss, but I think that they have responded to a lot of the things that came up at these meetings, and I think this amendment reflects that. And I know that we need to have a public hearing, and the school board still needs to have a vote on it. But I'm glad that we are here in council finally getting a chance to discuss this and consider it, because I do think it does provide some opportunities for some Metro students. I again thank Councilmember Allen for all her hard work on this.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Cash. Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I too want to join in the Mutual Admiration Society here. For those who are unaware, Councilmember Allen, this facility sits in District 17, and Councilmember Allen approached me essentially at the start of the term and asked if she could try to work on this because she knew of the history of community meetings that I had on this issue over the years. And I told her she's an at-large council member, and I welcomed her help, and she didn't even have to ask me, but I appreciated her doing that. And I think the work she has put into this is for those who have worked with Councilmember Allen on other issues, is emblematic of the thoroughness that she approaches every issue with. So I want to obviously talk about this more on second, but I would encourage members to vote for this tonight, and I do want members to know that I'll be signing on as a co-sponsor.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Sledge. Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I'll be the voice of dissent here tonight. This is originally, my understanding was this was to track with the progress of some updates that would be necessary to be considered by the school board. And in my opinion, this got filed prematurely, in fact, running counter to some of the commitments made in that community process. And if we look back through the decades about the sort of development by a private entity of Rose, I know this is complicated because Edge Hill is a community that kind of has split council representation. So I'm speaking about a facility that is in District 17, but it's just a few blocks away. And I have, several of the same community members that expressed concerns over a decade ago when some of the facilities that are, semi-privately operated that exist in Rose Park today were built. Ronnie Miller, King Hollins, some of the lions of Edge Hill and sort of the protectors of its heritage way. Many of the same people who worked diligently on the neighborhood conservation zoning overlay we processed a few years ago still stand in firm opposition to this. And I'm paying close attention to where my constituents are on this, and they are not there yet. And I will not be supporting this now that it has been pulled off of consent on first.
All right. Councilmember Young, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I kind of have gotten confused by all the conversation. Is this on first reading?
This is on first reading.
This is on first reading. Councilmember, we're actually on an amendment. So we're on first reading on an amendment.
That's what I thought. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anybody else in the queue? Councilmember Vercher, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I've been receiving some communications regarding this too. Is this going to track with the school board, or will we vote on this ahead of time, or what? If the sponsor can speak to that. There's been a lot of concerns around religious protections and equity, and I believe the board is wanting Mr. Hughes to formulate an equity plan as it relates to this, as it relates to this collaboration. If the sponsor can speak to that, to make sure that our decision isn't ahead of the school board's decision in the event some additional information comes about as it relates to this deal. And I know Councilwoman Allen, she's done a phenomenal job with community engagement as it relates to this. But in this climate where the conversation surrounding equity, we need to make sure that the legislation that we're passing is intentional, and it doesn't make certain groups worse off. So I don't know where I stand yet as it relates to this. If the sponsor can speak to the process flow with this legislation and what's actually going on at the school board.
Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the process flow is that this was heard at the August 11th meeting of the school board, and several questions were raised. Some of those are already reflected in what is here. Some of those will, I think, be further addressed once we hear what happens at the August 25th school board meeting. This was deferred to the August 25th school board meeting to allow Mr. Hughes, Ashford Hughes, to review it through an equity lens. He had just come on board when this came before the school board, and so he will be speaking to that at that meeting. I can't predict that will be a complete statement, but my understanding was that School Board Member Gentry had pointed out that after that meeting, there will be an entirely new school board. So her hope was that the board would move forward with the intention of completing this so that the people who had become familiar with it would be making a decision on it. So their intention is to try to get all the information that they need by August 25th, so that meeting should have taken place, and we'll know what the outcome of that meeting was at second hearing on September 1. Again, I have said all along, this bill can be deferred at so many points along the way, and if we need to, I am open to doing that. But my hope is simply to get this amendment on so that we have the right information, or much closer to the right information, in front of the public when we discuss it after the school board meeting.
All right, Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just for the viewing audience, this will be how many readings for this legislation?
It'll be 3. Well, right now it's about 5. So we've had, this is our first reading on it. We've deferred it twice now, once in October, once in March. I suggested bringing it back in May, and we weren't ready then, so I'm now bringing it back in August. And so it will be
still open for community engagement and
absolutely.
Okay, just that's for the public viewing, Vice Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to clarify.
Thank you, Councilmember Vercher. Councilmember Benedict.
Previous question.
Councilmember Benedict has called the previous question. Again, we have an amendment in front of us. Councilmember Benedict has called the previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, no. Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. We're on the amendment on BL 2019-11. We're voting on the amendment, not the bill. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Vote on the amendment is 39-0. Any corrections to that? All right, thank you. Now we're on BL 2019-11 as amended. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move it as amended, and I'm not sure if I do this at the same time. Also, request a public hearing on this, because I don't think that would happen automatically. If I need to do that separately, I'll do that. I would look to Mr. Cooper for direction.
So you can do it together, and the public hearing would be the first meeting in September. All right. So Councilmember Allen has moved passage of 2019-11 on first reading as amended, and is calling for a public hearing on this measure. It will be on the first meeting in September. Okay. Properly seconded. All right. So we have people. Hold on just a second. All right, so we've got a motion before us, properly seconded. I've got people in the queue. Councilmember Cash, your hand's still up. Is that from before?
Yes, my apologies.
All right. Councilmember Rosenberg, you're recognized.
Previous question.
Councilmember Rosenberg has called the previous question on this measure. We're voting on the previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. We're voting on Councilmember Allen's bill BL 2019-11 as amended, along with having a public hearing on this in the first meeting of September. That's what we're voting on. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
So I've got, sounds like one no. Did I hear any more? Any abstentions?
Councilman Bradford's a no.
Yes, I got
Welch is a no.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Henderson to abstain, please.
All right. So I've got it, it's a voice vote, so it's, I think what I've got is 35 to 3 to 1. Okay, so voice vote on first reading, it passes on first reading. All right. All right, so we have let's see, our next bill up is BL 2020-403 by Councilmember Parker. An ordinance amending Chapter 13.32 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws relative to sidewalk, cafes, and Chapter 7.08 of the Metropolitan Code relative to retail sales and storage of beer. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So basically what this bill does is afford restaurants and other businesses the opportunity to expand some of their seating during this pandemic to outdoor areas within the public right-of-way, such as sidewalks or hopefully parking areas, if we can get that language in there with an amendment. This is first reading. I'm happy to answer any questions any of my colleagues have, but I would ask y'all to support this on first reading.
All right, so Councilmember Parker has moved passage on first reading, properly seconded. Discussion. So I've got a couple people in the queue. Councilmember Rosenberg, you're recognized. Is that from before?
Yeah, sorry, Vice Mayor.
Okay, I've got Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Previous question.
Councilmember Sledge has moved the previous question. All in favor of the previous question, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no.
Aye. No.
Previous question prevails. We're on Councilmember Parker's Bill BL 2020-403 on first reading. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed,
Aye.
opposed no. Bill passes on first reading. All right. And now we're on BL 2020-420 by Councilmember Taylor. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by changing from RS5 to R6A zoning for property located at 2416 Alameda Street, approximately 150 feet east of 25th Avenue North. Councilmember Taylor, you recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe that this bill was inadvertently filed, and I want to withdraw it.
Okay, so the bill is withdrawn. Okay. All right, we have two late filed bills. The first one is an ordinance amending Title 10, Title 13, Title 15, Title 16 to permit the Nashville Fire Department, the Fire Marshal's Office, Metro Public Works, Metro Water Services, and Metro Codes to enforce emergency health orders. The bill is sponsored by Councilmember Mendez, Pulley, and Hurt. Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Would you like an explanation of what it does or move to suspend the rules first?
So why don't you give a quick explanation, and then we'll see about moving to suspend the rules. What is this bill about?
All right, I would like if Director Cooper could give the brief explanation, it would be helpful.
Mr. Cooper?
So there are two late ordinances that are somewhat related. One would allow the mayor to delegate other Metro employees to enforce health orders during a health crisis like we have now. The other would allow certain departments, I think codes and fire marshal, to actually post stop work orders for violation of health orders.
All right, Councilor Mendez.
I'd like to, so this one that we're on now is the one about having employees from other departments being able to post stop work orders. I'd like to move to suspend the rules.
All right. So Councilmember Mendez has moved to suspend the rules. Councilmember Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. This came before rules and nobody had an issue with the suspension.
All right. So Councilmember Mendez has moved to suspend the rules. Any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing none, our rules are suspended. Councilmember Mendez, you're on your first bill.
Thank you. Since we've already heard from Mr. Cooper about what it's about, just move approval for first reading.
All right. So Councilmember Mendez moves approval, properly seconded. Councilmember Glover, you're recognized.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the expansion of powers, but I'm going to end up voting for this tonight because I think it's absolutely critical that we let things pass on first reading, simply because we learn more and more things as we go forward, just like the tax revenue that's coming in now to us. So I'm going to support it tonight, but I do not agree with government trying to expand its powers as we keep doing here. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Glover. Nobody else in the queue. We're voting on the bill on first reading. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Bill passes on first reading. So the second bill, Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized on the second one, the ordinance amending Metropolitan Code Section 1.24.030 to permit the mayor to enlist metropolitan employees outside of the health department and the Metro Nashville Police Department to issue citations to enforce emergency health orders. Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized.
All right, thank you. This is the one that gives the mayor's office the flexibility to have employees other than the health department help enforce the medical director's orders. And with that, I'd move to suspend the rules.
All right, so Councilmember Mendez has moved to suspend the rules. Councilmember Rosenberg, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules Committee did not have any issues.
All right, back to you, Councilmember Mendez.
Do you want to find out whether there's objections?
Yeah, so Councilmember Mendez has moved to suspend the rules. Is there any objections for the suspension of the rules? Seeing none, you're on your bill. Rules are suspended.
All right, thanks. And again, folks, this is an ordinance, so we're just knocking out first reading. And to Councilman Glover's point, we'll have second reading to have it go to committee and hash out issues there. With that, I would move approval on first reading.
Okay, Councilmember Mendez has moved approval on first reading, properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Glover, is that your hand up from before?
No, I raised it again, Vice Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Glover, you're recognized.
And I agree. I think we should absolutely let things get to second reading to where we can understand everything and then make a fully informed decision. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Anybody else in the queue? Seeing none, all those in favor of this bill on first reading, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Bill passes on first reading. Those take care of the two bills that are late filed. We are now on bills on second reading. Okay, we have 5 bills on a second reading consent agenda. I will read them, and you let me know if any of these 5 need to come off of consent. They are BL 2020-380, BL 2020-391, BL 2020-392, 393, and 394. Any of those 5 need to come off of second reading consent agenda? Councilmember Glover, your hand is up. Was that from before, or you wanted to remove one of those from consent? Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. Seeing nobody else, hearing nobody else, I will read through these 5 and then ask for committee reports. Okay, so BL 2020-380, Councilmember O'Connell, amends the Metro Code regarding loading and unloading zones to allow the Traffic and Parking Commission to make rules establishing a curb loading zone management program governing the use of certain designated curb loading zones and allowing it to set the amount of related fees, including fees to be charged to users thereof. BL 2020-391, Councilmembers O'Connell, Mendez, and Murphy, declares surplus and authorizes the conveyance of a parcel of property located at 0 Spence Lane. BL 2020-392, Councilmembers O'Connell, Mendez, and others, authorizes the acquisition of an interest in 2 parcels of property and the granting of an easement in those same parcels in connection with the development of a project in downtown Nashville. BL 2020-393, abandons, Councilmembers Taylor, Murphy, and Henderson, abandons an existing sanitary sewer main, a sanitary sewer manhole and easements, and to accept public sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes and easements for four properties located at 3837 Dr. Walter S. Davis Boulevard. And BL 2020-394, Councilmembers Cash, Murphy, and Henderson, authorizes Metro government to accept permanent and temporary easements for the Cedar Lane Stormwater Improvement Project for two properties located at 2005 and 2007 Cedar Lane. All right, and I will ask for some committee reports. And I will go over to Councilmember Mendez for Budget and Finance on 391 and 392.
Thank you. And just one thing before I give the committee reports, I just want to report that a member of the public on social media is saying that the audio feed is out on Metro Nashville Network. And I've texted Director Cooper to check on that. And so doing this second reading agenda. But while he's checking, I'll give the committee report. Budget and Finance recommended approval for 391 and 392. Both of them 12 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there anything to report on the?
MNN is working on it.
Okay.
Since I can't guarantee that it will be recording. If we could pause for just a couple minutes and let me run down the hall.
All right. Well, we're going to take a pause for the cause until we can figure out our tech issues here. And I guess anything I say at this point won't matter since nobody can hear me. All right. I guess the vice mayor should have just kept going, right? I promised I haven't touched a button yet. Very, very good, Councilmember Van Rees. Anybody name that tune?
Howdy, we're the Farmer to Go. Yes, here's a song we wrote called Quarantine Cowgirl. Cowgirl, I'm in trouble.
council members, Metro Nashville Network is basically resetting the system. So they should hopefully be back in the WebEx, and that should hopefully fix things. Stand by. Thanks.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. Yeah, they're all working on it. It's just garbled audio, and we've got it on the TV here. It's both the live feed and the television. So their equipment is all working, so it has to be something with it. He went out there and pulled the plug. It's one of the longer breaks. We were getting going too. I really thought that we could get this done. 9:30. It was really sounding good.
Are we still on the meeting? Oh, yeah. You could make that decision later and call a special meeting if we learned that there were things that we had to consider.
I think the only thing I remember,
The microphones in the chamber are picking up disconcerting conversation.
I also just read that the Facebook live stream, everything is audible on that, folks. Just in case we're going to have any additional good music to listen to.
I think it'd be more appropriate if we had Councilman Nash play something original for us, if possible. He appears to be in his music room tonight.
Yeah, I think we ought to Britney Spears. Oops, I did it again. Seems like the technical issue of the day.
I do know that we have a public performance agreement, Jeff, so anything live is okay, but recorded, we might need to get BMI on that.
I'll get on it.
And replay it. Okay.
Okay. Council members, I believe we are back. For those that are still with us, we are having a little bit of technical audio issues, and we are on second reading ordinances. Yep, Mr. Cooper, go
I
ahead.
want to just let council members know that the live feed may still be acting up, but it will be replayed correctly. And so we're required under the
Gotcha.
governor's order to replay it within 48 hours
Okay.
of the meeting. And so that will be done.
Okay.
And that part will be right.
Gotcha. So there is a bit of a delay in the downstream, I guess, of the recording here, but it will be recorded correctly and be available for everybody for sure. All right. So we were on second reading ordinances. We have a consent agenda for 5 of them, and we read through them. And Councilmember Mendez, if you could go ahead and redo your report. We had just read through the 5 ordinances, BL 2020-380, 391, 392, 393, and 394. And everything kind of went haywire once, I believe that, so Councilmember Mendez, could you repeat the report for 391 and 392 from Budget and Finance?
Sure thing. Budget and Finance Committee recommended approval of 391 and 392. Both of those 12 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Murphy, Planning, Zoning, and Historic, for a report on 391, 92, 93, and 94.
Thank you. All of those were voted 15 in favor, 0 against.
And my time is up.
Councilmember Hager, can you
I'm sorry that you can't see the document. I'm sure it would have generated at least one question. Mr. Secor is next.
Thank you so much. All right. Councilmember Murphy, can you repeat the report for 391, 92, 93, 94?
More than happy to. 15 in favor, 0 against for all of the bills listed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Henderson for a report on Public Works of 392, 93, and 94.
Thank you, Pro Tem. We recommended approval on all those bills, 10 in favor, bills, 10 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you very much. And if you'd be so kind as to move the consent agenda.
Yes, sir. I would move approval of the consent agenda, please.
It is so moved and it's properly seconded. Any discussion on the consent agenda of those 5 bills? Seeing none, hearing none. All in favor of the second reading consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? Or any abstention?
Aye.
Seeing none, hearing none, our consent agenda passes. Thank you all. Okay, we are now on those second reading ordinances not on our consent agenda, and we will begin with BL 2020-386. Councilmember Allen. Amends the Metro Code regarding the selection of appraisers for the sale, purchase, lease, sublease, or other disposition of property owned by Metro government, and to require a community meeting prior to the execution of lease agreements. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to ask for committee reports, please.
Councilmember Mendez, Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance recommended adding an amendment to the bill, 12 in favor, 0 against. And then at the request of the sponsor, recommended deferral, I think it was for one meeting, as amended, 12 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Councilmember Mendez. Back to you, Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd like to move the amendment with the brief explanation.
All right, it is moved. It is properly seconded. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So this bill is an outgrowth of the work that I've been doing with the community on the previous bill that we discussed, just recognizing that when public land is being used in a ground lease type of arrangement or anything that involves sale of public land, it is imperative that the community be involved in that. And so this bill would require a community meeting before long-term leases are entered into. And during the process of working with the mayor's office and the finance department, they suggested some amendments. One would be to add a threshold so that we're not dealing with very small projects that don't have a long impact. And so this amendment would set a threshold and then also allow that threshold to be adjusted by the property director based on the consumer price index so that it would remain a meaningful threshold. And so with that, I would move the amendment and then ask for a one meeting deferral so that I can incorporate some other good comments that came up during the budget committee discussion and bring it back with those amendments at the next upcoming meeting. So move the amendment and then back to the deferral. So move the amendment.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Murphy, are you seeking recognition on the amendment? Your hands raised from before?
Yes, I can be heard after
so we
the
have
amendment, please.
Motion. It is properly seconded on the amendment. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against or abstention? Seeing none, the amendment passes. So back to you, Councilmember Allen, for your motion for deferral.
Thank you. Yes. So in the budget committee meeting, some good suggestions about notification of the community were raised to extend it from simply notifying neighborhood associations to also look at notifying actual property owners within a certain area. So the deferral will enable me to do that. And with that, I would move for a one meeting deferral.
It is a proper motion. It is properly seconded.
I'm sorry. Can I, before we get there?
It was a proper motion and second, and so now that now it's opened to the floor. So yes, Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you. I wanted to request that this get also, since it's getting deferred, if it can go through the planning committee as well. If the sponsor would be willing to amend her motion. I think at least from my experience last term with the Sultan property and how selling that in my district led to community engagement policy being changed and an SP being put on the property. I think it would be worthwhile to send this through the planning committee for discussion. And I would appreciate if she would amend her motion to send it to us for some discussion as well, please.
Certainly happy to do that. So request a one meeting deferral and a referral to the planning committee.
Very good. Anyone else seeking recognition on the motion for a one meeting deferral and a referral to the Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee? Seeing nobody else in the queue, all those in favor of that one meeting deferral plus a referral to the Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against or any abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes for that one meeting deferral and referred to the Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee. Thank you very much, Councilmember Allen. On to BL 2020-387, Councilmembers Hancock, Evans, and O'Connell. Amends the Metro Code pertaining to health insurance benefits for members of the Metro Council after they leave office. Councilmember Hancock.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Mendez, Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance recommended approval of an amendment, 9 in favor, 3 against, and recommended disapproval of the bill, 5 voting in support, 7 voting to disapprove.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Roberts for Personnel, Public Information, and Human Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Housing voted 5 in favor and 1 against for an indefinite deferral.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Roberts. Back to you, Councilmember Hancock.
Well, so I think it's deferred by rule then, right?
Deferred indefinitely by rule.
It is deferred indefinitely by rule. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. All right, and that's it. On to BL 2020-388, Councilmember Sledge. Amends the Metro Code regarding parking on private property. Councilmember Sledge.
Thank you, Pro Tem. So this only has one committee report. It's mine, and we voted to defer one meeting, 9 in favor, 0 against. So it is deferred by rule.
This is also deferred by rule. Thank you, Councilmember Sledge. Moving right along. BL 2020-390, Councilmembers Mendez, Murphy, and Henderson. Grants a franchise to Google Fiber Tennessee, LLC, to construct, operate, and maintain a fiber optic communications system within Metro Nashville under the provision of Metro Code. Councilmember Mendez.
The Budget and Finance Committee recommended to defer one meeting, 12 in favor, 0 against, and there are 2 other committee reports.
All right, Councilmember Murphy, Planning, Zoning, and Historic.
Thank you. We also voted to defer one meeting, 15 in favor, 0 against.
And Councilmember Henderson, Public Works.
Public Works Committee recommended a one meeting deferral, 10 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Councilmember. Back to you, Councilmember Mendez.
Move for a one meeting deferral.
Is a proper motion and is a proper second. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, hearing none. Oh, let's see. Councilmember Glover?
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. I would like Director Cooper to answer something for me, if you wouldn't mind. When it's deferred in committee, one meeting like this, is it not automatically deferred by rule? Mr. Cooper, am I misunderstanding what our rules are?
Yes, the first time it's referred to a committee, if it is deferred, then yes, it is deferred by rule.
And was this the first time?
It was.
All right, thank you. So we're automatically deferring by rule then, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Councilmember Glover. All right, so BL 2020-390 is also deferred by rule. Thank you all. All right, moving right along. Oh, I believe that's it for everything on second reading. And I will clean that. Okay, we are on bills on third reading. We actually have a consent calendar. I'm going to go through the consent calendar with you and then see if anything needs to be taken off the consent calendar. These are bills on third reading. This is what's on consent. BL 2020-316, 319, 320, 328, 334, 335, 336, 362, 363, 365, 366, 370, 373, 381, 382, and 383. Anything that needs to be bumped off the calendar? Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Please remove 335 from consent.
Okay. 335 off of consent. Councilmember Glover? Councilmember Glover? Leftover. Must be left over. Okay.
I left it. It was up by accident, Vice Mayor. Sorry.
All right. No problem. Councilmember Hager?
You didn't say 363 because I've got a amendment on it, right?
Let's see. Which one? 367, you have a substitute order?
Correct.
I think there's an amendment on 3.
That shouldn't be in consent.
There's nothing on 363.
I'm sorry, 367, and I'm sorry. It's not on consent, right?
Say that again?
It's not on consent, 367, the one you just mentioned.
Right. 367 is not on consent. That's right.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? All right, I'm going to read the captions of these bills on third reading. We've got BL 2020-316 by Hager and Mendez. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by applying a residential accessory structure overlay district
to various properties located along Brandywine Drive, Monchannon Road, Monchannon Terrace, Willowbow Lane, Barley Mill Road, Rising Sun Court, Rising Sun Terrace, Rising Sun Lane, Cherry Branch Lane, Rolling Mill Road, Louviers Lane, Kennett Road, Kennett Court, Rolling Mill Court, and Chute Lane, Zone RS 30, 343.38 acres. BL 2023-19 by O'Connell, an ordinance to amend Title 17 in the Metropolitan Code of Laws by applying a historic landmark overlay district on property located at 1600 10th Avenue North at the northern corner of Garfield Street and 10th Avenue North. BL 2023-20 by O'Connell, ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by applying a historic landmark overlay district on property located at 421 Church Street, approximately 100 feet east of Opry Place, zone DTC, and located within the Capitol Mall Redevelopment Overlay District. BL 2023-28 by Councilmember Parker, ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by changing from RS5 to R6A zoning for property located at 118 Lucille Street, approximately 470 feet east of Dickerson Pike. BL 2020-334 by Councilmember O'Connell, ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by to clarify language within Chapter 17.37 Downtown Code related to the bonus height program and transfer development rights. BL 2020-336 as amended, Druffel and Sawara, an ordinance requiring the Director of Finance to provide recommendations to the Metropolitan Council regarding revisions to the Metropolitan Government's debt management policy. BL 2020-362 by Benedict, ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by applying a contextual overlay district to properties located at various addresses on either side of Quarter Drive, western portion of Duggar Drive, and the connecting northern portion of Rosecliff Drive at the northwest corner of Rosecliff Drive and Duggar Drive, zone R10, it's 5.27 acres. BL 2020-363 by Councilmember Hager, ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by changing from CS to RS10 zoning for part of property located at Swinging Bridge Road, unnumbered at the corner of Swinging Bridge Road and Hickerson Street. BL 2020-365 by Parker, ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from CL to SP zoning for properties located at 829 and 835 Dickerson Pike, approximately 350 feet south of Cleveland Street and within the Dickerson Pike Sign Urban Design Overlay District. BL 2020-366 by Benedict, ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by changing from RS10 to R10 zoning for property located at 1318 Cardinal Avenue, approximately 75 feet northwest of Adine Street, 0.23 acres. BL 2020-370 by Councilmember Parker, ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by changing from RS5 to R6A zoning for property located at 105 East Moreland Street, approximately 230 feet east of Dickerson Pike. BL 2020-373 by Councilmember Swope, ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by amending the Brentwood Skyline specific plan for property located at Stonebrook Drive, unnumbered, approximately 170 feet south of Fox Ridge Drive, 6.56 acres, permit an additional 55 multifamily residential units. BL 2020-381 by Councilmember Mendez, Henderson, and Toombs, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Department of Water and Sewer Services to enter into an extension or to an agreement with Great Tennessee Land Company for the operation and maintenance of a public pressure sewer extension and acceptance of associated easements for development of the Darcy subdivision in Williamson County. BL 2020-382 by O'Connell, Mendez, and others, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting through the Department of Water and Sewer Services to enter into an agreement with Nashville Propco, LLC, to provide improved public sanitary sewer services through the construction of an improved stormwater system for both its proposed development as well as the existing properties in the area. And BL 2020-383 by Rosenberg and Welsh, ordinance readopting the code of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, Tennessee, prepared by Municipal Code Corporation, including supplemental replacement pages containing certain ordinances of a general and permanent nature enacted on or before March 18, 2020. Those are the bills on third reading on the consent calendar. Anything that needs to be bumped? Okay, seeing none, I need a committee report. I believe it's just one committee. It's Planning and Zoning. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized.
Thank you. Of the bills you read into the consent agenda, we were 15 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, and can you give me a motion to approve?
love to motion to approve those bills.
Okay, so I got a motion to approve these bills on the consent calendar on third reading, properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Hager, your hand's still up, but by accident. There it goes. Nobody else in the queue? All those in favor of bills on the consent calendar on third reading, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Bill passes, we still have 40 minutes? 40 to 0. Any corrections to that? Bills pass on consent calendar. We're now on BL 2020-290 by Councilmember Lee. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by amending a specific plan for property located at 3839 Murfreesboro Pike, approximately 530 feet north of Old Hickory Boulevard, Zone SP, and within the Murfreesboro Pike Urban Design Overlay District at 65.1 acres. Councilmember Lee, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. May I have committee reports, please?
Yes, you can. Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you. We, the amendment proposed passed 15 in favor, 0 against. And then the bill as amended, there was 4 in favor, 4 against, and 7 abstentions.
Okay. All right, back to you, Councilmember Lee.
Yes, sir. I would like to move the amendment so that we can discuss the bill.
Okay, so Councilmember Lee has moved the amendment, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
Yes, sir. We have been working on this bill for some while. We have had actually 10 community meetings on this. The residents, the amendment actually puts restrictions on what can be in this area. This area is about homes, restaurants, but it is also about a business park. So we are having 120 for sale homes, 48-acre park, an event space, mixed use retail, and one of the main things is a sit-down restaurant and a business park. The amendment puts restrictions on what can be in the business park. And I know in planning, we had somebody in the planning committee, we had somebody from planning to discuss that. So I don't know if you want to discuss, if I can have somebody from planning to kind of discuss what the restrictions are, or if you would rather me just give you some of the restrictions, sir. What would be appropriate?
It's up to you, council member. I'm not sure.
Okay, so then
Lisa Milligan is on the call. Okay.
Yes, and she is the one that presented in the committee. So I will give you some unless some committee members have some questions. Some of the restrictions around the business park would be no collection centers, no construction or demolition landfills, no medical waste, no sanitation landfills, waste transfer, no power plants, no water waste treatment centers, no energy facilities, no fuel storage, no tank farms, no compressor stations. These are some of the things that when we talked to people that we heard they did not want there. So these are some of the restrictions that we have put on there.
All right, so Councilmember Lee has just explained the amendment. She's moved the amendment. It's been properly seconded. Discussion on the amendment.
Yes, sir. Is that me?
Councilmember Lee, there is nobody in the queue. We're ready to vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, amendment passes. Councilmember Lee, you're on your bill as amended.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I would like to put this forth before the council to just go ahead and have it voted up or down. We have worked on this for some years. We have had over 10 community meetings. I understand people have been getting lots of emails on this and conversations on it. There has been a lot of misinformation put out there on this. I have seen a lot of behaviors that I wish I had not seen. I have had people in my community to contact me. I'm going to share two of them with you. One said that she would rather email me because she was afraid to put it on Facebook, whether she was for it or not, because the comments were so intense. I got a message from somebody else who had posted, yes, that they were for this in my district, but they took it down because they had started getting harassed by people when they put their post up there. It's a shame that something like this has to happen, especially when a lot of it started out from people that weren't in my district. I have had the question, well, the majority of your district, are they for it or are they against it? I will say in my district, I have both. I've had people talk that lived in the district that thought it would be great. I had the homeowners president that just contacted me saying that it would be fantastic to see what we're proposing go up in that area. Have I had some people in my district say they weren't for it? Yes, I have. Have I heard of, I'm not going to say I have seen it because, of course, somehow it bypassed me. Have I heard of a 300 or 400 petition that was out against this? Yes, I have. And I will tell you, all of those people were not even in the two districts. Some were from out of state. Some were from another district. And were some from my district? Yes, some were from my district that signed that as well. So if you want to look at this as a controversy in the district, it is, because I have people on all sides for it, all sides on this. But I will tell you that a lot of what you're getting is from outside of my district, although I do know that our districts all in the Southeast come together and are so close that what affects one affects the other. And I am totally aware of that. I would say I tried to get a straw poll from people just in my district, and I put it out there and I asked them and I said, you know, this is coming for the council tonight. I want to see, I have heard from people, but I want to see what 33 wants. So just give me a yes or no, and please let me hear only from people on 33. And again, I got a lot of people from another district on there because I recognized those names, so I knew where they were from. So this offers a lot of good, I think. There are some people who think it will not be good because they do not think it's going to stand up to the standards that it said it was going to. So I am putting it out there, and I'm just asking the council people, you have gotten information too. I know you read what you get and make a decision, and I'm putting it out there for a vote. So I move approval if that's what it is, or other discussions.
Yep. So Councilmember Lee has moved approval of BL 2020-290 as amended. It's properly seconded. Discussion on the bill. Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And so this project has been very contentious. It is on Hobson Pike, which is literally the dividing street between District 33 and 32. I have two subdivisions that are diagonally across the street from this property that will be severely affected in terms of property value, having additional tractor trailer trucks. The street is only going to be a quarter of the way fixed for tractor trailers to come in. There's going to be an additional lane added. Even with the IWD restrictions, in our planning committee today, Councilmember Hager asked, is it possible that this development could be 24/7 with tractor trailer traffic, and that there was no answer for that. So that is a possibility. What's left when you take the restrictions out are several warehouse options. And if you've read any of their emails, you've seen this community is not interested in warehouses. Not to mention, Nashville Next was done a few years ago. It was unanimous by the community that they wanted no more industrial in the area. So this bill would flip it. So suddenly you have 65 acres of industrial. And when they showed the plan today in planning committee, only 8 of these acres are designated for residential. I think this is a detriment to our area. It's not about districts because this affects an entire area. We have a new park that's going to be going in down the road. We have a high school that is across the street, a new project coming directly across the street where people are going to be living. And I would challenge all of my colleagues to say, do you want to wake up every day looking at an industrial business park or a large group of warehouses? And I don't believe that you do. I am imploring all of you, please. You've received numerous emails, and the petition was sent back in June to all of us. So all the signatures are there. It is District 31, District 32, and District 33 members that are on that list. And last night on the call, and there are council members here that were on that call and can also share their experience of hearing who was interested in this project or not. I think that we need to listen to them and also read your emails. This is the project that the majority of this community does not want. There may be a few, but they are way outnumbered by those individuals that are not interested in having warehouses. They want more residential in the area and mixed use, but definitely not business park and definitely not warehouse. So I implore you to please vote no. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to speak in favor of this zoning. I know it's controversial because we've had a lot of action at the council on the bill, but as your planning commissioner over there, we didn't have as much controversy there. There were not personal attacks there. There was not whose district is it in, what line is it in. It was, does this meet policy? And as you know, I mean, constituents call in there too. And there was not overwhelming concern or negative opinions about this project when it came before planning. And so that's why I had Ms. Milligan run through the slides for us during the planning committee today, is so that y'all would see the whole plan as it was presented to the committee or to the commission, and see also that it fits policy. This is something that fits policy, but yeah, we always have controversial things that come up. I am disappointed in my committee having so many abstentions today when the planning committee is supposed to help the rest of the body make a decision here. And I feel like my committee passed up on that, and that's something that we'll discuss and we'll work on and figure out what else we need to do there. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of work has been done by all the council members involved in the area. There have been numerous restrictions added to this bill, restrictions that were similar amendments that we see all of us put on bills that become controversial, limiting different uses that we don't want in our district. And while no bill can be perfectly tailored when you don't know exactly what's coming through, I think that the amendment gets this pretty darn close. And it is more restrictive than when the Planning Commission voted for it, and it meets the policy that is for the area. And so with that, I'm going to ask y'all to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hart, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just stand because I do know that property has been vacant for decades. I mean, at least 15 years, since Starwood was out there. And I have looked and read the emails that have come through, and how I saw that there was form letters that had been prepared, and then I saw some personal attacks on the council member, and that's really concerned me because I know that the council member has worked very hard on this, and I know her to be a fair, cooperative individual. And for those personal attacks to come directly at her, it just didn't sit well with me. I appreciate the comments that Councilmember Murphy provided, because it does get to the zoning and the actual purpose and usage of the land. And because of that, I am inclined to vote in favor and encourage others to do the same.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Young.
Previous question.
Councilmember Young has called the previous question. We're on the previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
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 No. No.
No.
No.
All right. I think we're on the board. Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask you to call the roll. We're voting on the previous question because I can't tell. All right. So if you want to vote, if you're for the previous question, want to go ahead and vote, you're going to vote yes. If you don't want to vote, if you want to have more discussion, you would vote no. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Linda.
Yes.
Hurt. Yes. Allen.
No.
Glover.
Yes.
Suara.
No.
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 Thank you. Hall.
Yes.
Toombs. No. Gamble.
No.
Swope.
Yes.
Councilmember Swope?
Yes.
Parker.
No.
Withers. No. Benedict.
Yes.
Van Reese.
No.
Hancock.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
Evans.
No.
Bradford.
Yes.
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 Broughton.
Yes.
Syracuse. No. Welsh.
No.
Sledge.
No.
Cash.
No.
O'Connell.
Yes.
Roberts. No.
Correct. No.
Taylor.
We're voting on previous question, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Hauser.
No.
Druffel. Yes. Murphy.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Pulley.
No.
Johnston.
Yes.
Nash.
Yes.
Bircher.
No.
Porterfield.
No.
Sepulveda.
No.
Rutherford.
No.
Stiles.
No.
Lee.
Yes.
Henderson.
No.
Rosenberg.
No.
Previous question fails, so we're back on the bill. Okay, so got to go back to the list. Councilmember Withers, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Mayor. This has been a controversial topic. I actually do remember Starwood, as I'm sure many of us do too, and I know how beloved that was in the community. Although it's it's no longer there. So to Councilmember Hurt's point, we have a parcel that is sitting vacant. We've had a few attempts to figure out what to do with it, and I know how much the Southeast community really gets involved in their zoning, and that's great. I had a lot of concerns initially about the bill, but I have been persuaded by some of the more thoughtful emails that we've received lately, including from residents of the area, business owners, and stakeholders who report that they have listened to both sides at community meetings and have been persuaded to be in favor. And so that moves me into the yes column on this. I would also agree with our Planning, Zoning, and Historical Committee Chair Murphy, although I wasn't able to make that committee meeting today due to being the Personnel Committee. I really would encourage all of our council members to vote up or down on this bill today. We are all elected to cast votes. That's why we're here. We're granted seats to cast a vote. So absent people who may have a conflict for whatever reason, I just, whichever way you're going to vote, I would encourage our colleagues to cast a yay or nay vote. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Withers. Councilmember Henderson, you're recognized. There you go.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I had some questions for planning staff, if I may, not being able to participate in planning committee and based on what we were sent via email by the applicant last time, I'm hoping planning staff can kind of speak to, is this like a conditional or provisional SP? It seemed like the plan that was sent by the applicant by way of, lobbying and support, while there had been a fair amount of design done in the mixed use portion and the residential portion, there was just a big amorphous blank for kind of the industrial part. And I feel like I want to understand, that kind of runs the gamut, as I understand, from a more office type business park to the more industrial end of the spectrum. And I did not know, with this amendment and additional revisions, if there is more clarity on what will go in that large part of the plan. And then as well, just circling back, is this conditional, provisional? I mean, like at this juncture, it seems like that is still somewhat of an amorphous or unknown piece of the plan. Thank you.
Ms. Milligan, are you on the phone? There you are.
Hi, Vice Mayor. I am on the call. This is Lisa Milligan with the Planning Department. To speak to Zone 3, which is the zone that would permit the IWD uses, excluding the long list of prohibited uses that was amended into the bill tonight. That is primarily a regulatory portion. What it does is it does outline a private loop road and private internal driveway. It proposes primarily industrial and office land uses. There are bulk standards that are included for the buildings in regards to height and those sorts of things. And it also includes facade standards for any buildings that sort of front on those drives. There's tree planting areas and landscape buffers that are specified, and tree density units that are required to be planted. And so the zoning, the SP provides for those bulk and massing standards and landscaping, but exact building placement would not be settled until final site plan, which is an additional review by planning staff.
Vice Mayor, may I ask a point of clarification?
You have 30 seconds. Yeah,
Okay.
Your time's up.
So when we have these, and I apologize, I don't know if the language is conditional SP or, basically when it comes back, only staff sees it. And so I know there's sometimes a lot of concern in the community, especially when it's a particularly large portion. What is the public visibility or the awareness of other area council members, when that comes back before planning? I mean, it's just basically if it meets the massing standards, the material standards, the landscape, you all don't really, there's no check at that point. You do check it, but it proceeds, correct?
So there's not anything that's known as a conditional SP. This is just an SP. It's a specific plan. It may not be detailed in that it's showing specific building locations, but that is not unusual for an SP, especially one of this size. And so it does outline all of the bulk and facade standards, landscaping standards, those sorts of zoning type standards, and they would be reviewed by staff with the final site plan. Now, a final site plan is through our process as adopted in the zoning code, an administrative review. Those plans are always publicly accessible, and we send out all of our applications are sent out in a packet to council members when they're received, so that council members are aware of the applications that we have, and they're also publicly available on our development tracker. But final site plans, as is the case with all SPs, are administrative.
All right, thanks, Ms. Milligan. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So this vote is a difficult one for me. I did attend the virtual meeting last night. The overwhelming majority of the residents on the call did not support the project. There were a few folks in support of it. And I know we all know that when folks are dissenting, that oftentimes they are the loudest. They make sure that everyone shows up at the meetings. They make sure that the emails are sent out, and the people in support are not as vocal. And I do think that Councilwoman Lee has worked hard on this bill. However, because I too have been a dissenter in the past for a project that did not have support in my district, and I know that we went above and beyond trying to get someone to listen to us, even enlisting the help of another council person because we felt our representation wasn't listening to us. And so now that I'm in the seat as a council person, I feel like it's hypocritical for me to ignore those dissenting voices when I know, based off my own experience attending the meeting, that the majority of the community is not in support of this bill. And that's why I'm inclined to vote no on this bill. No disrespect to Councilwoman Lee.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr. President. This issue has spilled over into a couple of different districts, really multiple districts in the Southeast. And District 31 has been invoked previously in the conversation. But I can share with my colleagues that from speaking to constituents in 31, and granted, just the lay of the land, we're not right on top of it, but we're not far away from it. By any means, there's far more people in 31 who are opposed to this. It's very obvious when you look at the numbers. Very few have reached out to me in favor of it, and that includes opposition from community groups in the area as well that are connected to District 31. And so I stand opposed to it. But I have a lot of respect for Councilwoman Lee, and I want to also point out the fact that I'm severely disappointed in the rhetoric that has come from this effort, and that has been troubling along the way to see some of the things that have been said, the back and forth and name calling and that sort of thing, and especially a lot of what's taken place on social media. So I just wanted to point that out as a disappointment in this whole thing, but just looking at my constituents and what they're telling me, I have to stand opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. First, I would like to say, similar to what Councilwoman Toombs said, this is extremely difficult. I would like to commend the sponsor. I think that Councilwoman Lee has worked very hard to try to find something that works for the people in the community. She's had numerous meetings to try to find a workable project here. Unfortunately, there are just too many people in the community that are not in support of this project. And I know that, we try to respect councilmatic courtesy, and we trust that council members know what's best for their district. But in a project that borders two districts, that has an impact on an area that's bigger than one council district, you have to listen to those voices of all the people in the community. And I lean on the side of people in the community. People should have a voice in what's coming to their community. And I think that, in my personal opinion, that is something that we have to make sure that we're listening to those voices. So similar to Councilwoman Toombs, I was on the call last night. There are some people in District 33 that are in support of this project, but the vast majority of the people that have contacted me have not been in favor of the project. So I will be voting no on this project. Again, Councilwoman Lee worked very hard on this, so I commend her. And this is, nothing against Councilwoman Lee's work on this, but I have to listen to, what the community has requested.
Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the conversation that we're having there, because this really is a hard decision. The emails that I have gotten, as someone else has already pointed out, the people that were against it, many didn't have a specific statement to make other than that they didn't want warehouse, which does seem to be a large portion of this. And Ms. Milligan has stated some bulk standards and facade standards. One of the specific concerns that I did get was just that there weren't enough design standards to ensure that it would be that there would be quality control with how it affected the neighborhood around it. So if, just again for clarification to help me understand, if the concerns of the neighbors, those that have been advocated other than just we don't want it, if they don't want warehouse, and there's this very large area that is potentially warehouse, is there any protection other than the list of things that can't happen there that could make this be the mixed use type of development that people were hoping they would get? And do bulk standards and facade standards, is that something that Ms. Milligan would consider to be, quote, design standards or quality control?
Ms. Milligan.
Yes, I'm looking through, hold on, give me just a moment. I'm looking through the plan so I can familiarize myself again with those standards that are included. So within Zone 1, let's see. The bulk standards for Zone 1, it does have a maximum height indicated of, okay, Zone 1 is the attached and detached single family and multifamily, or single family and townhome housing. Zone 2 is mixed use. And then Zone 3 is the primarily office and warehouse. It gives a maximum height of 45 feet total. It specifies the maximum floor area ratio and impervious surface. It requires a setback of 50 feet from Hobson Pike. It has rear and side setbacks as well. It provides a specific ground floor glazing for industrial buildings, for entryways. And so what that does is it helps to create not just flat facades. It provides for windows and doors along those facades. It also gives a glazing percentage required for for the upper floors of industrial buildings. The ground floor around Hobson Pike is required to have more glazing because it's more visible. And then if anything is office or commercial, it's actually required to be higher than if it's industrial. It says that it wouldn't require any sort of truck parking or loading. That's loading bays, garage doors, truck parking areas. They're not permitted to front Hobson Pike. And so there has been thought given to the location of those types of visible things to keep the public realm along Hobson Pike more aesthetically pleasing. It also has some landscape and open space standards regarding planting of trees, street trees, those sorts of things. Additionally, it has sort of design standards for if you have a corner entry versus a mid-entry building on the industrial buildings. And so, yes, it's very much design type standards. That's sort of what I'm talking about when I talk about bulk and mass. There's some other things about avoiding uninterrupted walls, those sorts of things that are built into the SP that will keep those buildings to be more architecturally pleasing.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Milligan. Councilmember Vercher, you're recognized.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Vercher?
Yeah, can you hear me, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. I want to commend Councilwoman Lee on the community engagement and her grace throughout this entire process. This property, for outsiders, is just 65 acres that's been a vacant parcel. But for those of us that's carried progress for this region out here on our backs with the scars to show, this is really about the best use for the future and sustainability for this region. My district is 3.9 miles away from this property. It has a regional impact. This has nothing to do with policy. This is about quality of life for the fastest growing, most populated area here in this city. This is about the area neighborhoods, the schools. This type of project, Vice Mayor, would not have been proposed anywhere else in the city. And my frustration with the entire planning process, and I've expressed this the entire time that I've been on council, is that we don't take into consideration what's already existing. And I want to remind this body, as a council, we've already spent millions of dollars for land down the street from this property for green space. So now what we're saying, we're gonna invest millions of dollars in green space, and we're gonna have an industrial complex down the road from it. And across from that, we're gonna expect children to go to schools. And oh, by the way, on the other side of the property, we're also gonna ask neighbors to live across from this industrial complex. That's what it is, colleagues. That's what it is. This is not a mixed-use development. This is an industrial development, and they need to call it what it is. That's why this is so controversial, because our neighbors out here, we've gone through enough. We've seen this so many times. We know what it is. They can't tell us who's going to be on the property. They still have this conceptual type plan. I've been on the meetings too. And where we are as a region, that 65 acres being vacant, we are okay. We are patient out here because the progress that we have now, it took a long time for us to get here, and we do not want to regress. Overwhelmingly, the last 20 years, our community has said, we don't want any more apartments. We want ownership out here, because we're trying to shift away from being a transient community. And we need you guys to help us to be a sustainable region. When we don't take into consideration of things, you create failing communities, you create failing schools. And this ain't even about jobs either. This is about a jewel, the last jewel of land that we have out here. And quite frankly, in this city, you need to ask yourself, this 65 acres, is that the best use for industrial IWD? No one in this chamber wants IWD zoning in their district. And let's just be honest. We all know it's the worst zoning you can have. If this was mixed use, it needs to be residential and commercial. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Vercher. Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I am a member of the
planning committee today, and I appreciated Lisa Milligan giving us the list of things that are not allowed businesses. But my father was a lawyer, and he always told me that a contract, it's not what a contract says, it's what a contract doesn't say that gets you in trouble. And what that list of excluded businesses didn't say was a lot of things that are very, very offensive to the neighborhood out in districts 31, 32, 33. This isn't about what, it doesn't have anything to do with architectural enhancements or what things are going to look like. It's what it is going to do and how it is going to impact the neighborhood there with increased traffic, increased pollution, increased noise. And I think that we need to be very cognizant about the fact that there's a very long, long list of what we can't have, but what's not on that list are things that will totally change the nature of that neighborhood and that community. And once those things are gone, they are gone forever. And so this is not something that we should support because it is not a positive growth measure for our community, especially a community that has seen not a lot of investment, and we need to start expanding our community and our city and investing in all parts of our community equally and equitably. So I would ask my colleagues to vote against this.
Councilmember Swope.
Previous question.
Councilmember Swope has called the previous question. Try again. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Yes.
Opposed, no. All right, this previous question prevails. We're on the bill because of the nature of this. This was going to be, we're going to go ahead and do it by roll call. So we are voting on BL 2020-290 by Councilmember Lee as amended. So Madam Clerk, if you are for the bill, you'll vote yes. If you're against the bill, obviously you'll vote no, and obviously you can abstain. Madam Clerk, take the roll.
Mendez,
No.
Hurt, yes. Allen,
No.
Glover,
Yes.
Sora,
Abstain.
Hall,
Yes. Yes.
Hughes, no. Gamble,
No.
Swope,
Yes.
Parker,
No.
Withers, yes. Benedict,
No.
Van Reese,
No.
Young,
Yes.
I'm sorry, and Ms. Hancock,
Yes.
Hager,
Abstain.
Evans,
No.
Bradford,
No.
Roden,
Abstain.
Syracuse, no. Welsh,
No.
Sledge,
No.
Cash,
No.
O'Connell,
Yes.
Roberts,
Clarity, are we on the bill or are we on
yes.
the? Okay, I'm a no.
Taylor,
No.
Hauser,
No.
Druffel, no. Murphy,
Councilmember Murphy.
Yes.
Pulley,
Yes.
Johnston,
No.
Nash,
Yes.
Vercher,
No.
Porterfield,
No.
Sepulveda,
No.
Rutherford,
No.
okay, thank you. Stiles, did you vote no?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, Lee.
Yes.
Henderson,
No.
Rosenberg.
No.
So the vote was 12 for, 25 against, 3 abstentions. Bill fails. We're now on BL 2020-335 as amended by Councilmember Pulley and Stiles. Ordinance amending the Metropolitan Code of Laws to make a violation of a mayoral executive order during a civil emergency a Class C misdemeanor. Councilmember Pulley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I believe all committee reports are in. And so I would move approval with a very, very brief explanation.
Okay, Councilmember Pulley has moved approval on third reading, properly seconded. Back to you, Councilmember Pulley.
We have, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. We've had a robust discussion at both at committee and on second reading. A lot of things were brought out about the bill and concerns were addressed and brought up. The only thing I wanted to add to this is there was a lot of discussion around the initial reasoning for having added this because during the May protests, curfew was called for by the mayor, and it was discovered that the curfew was unenforceable because we didn't have the ability to enforce it. Therefore, this was brought to the table. I also think it's important to note that there are many other reasons besides what happened in May of this year to call for a curfew. I can just simply relate one personal experience when I was wearing a uniform and patrolling the streets of a city of a similar size to this. The only time we ever had the need to call for a curfew was during an incredibly bad snowstorm at the end of February, 1st of March. And it was so bad that our patrol vehicles got stuck in the middle of the roads and we had to abandon them. I spent 3 days at a police precinct because I couldn't get home. And the mayor of the city called for a curfew. We ended up having to patrol the streets with Humvees because with the National Guard, and it was dangerous and a public safety issue for people being out there. There are many other weather-related instances I can think of where the mayor may exercise this option, and it would be unfortunate to have a curfew like that needed and not have the ability to enforce it. So I also think Mr. Jameson is available if Vice Mayor, you feel the need to have him further clarify some of the things that this bill does. So with that, I would ask that my colleagues approve this on third reading.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Pulley. I've got people in the queue. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We did have robust discussion about this on second reading. And on second reading, I brought up my concerns about, on whom would this enforcement really fall? Are our most vulnerable residents going to end up being impacted negatively by this? I'm told that an unhoused person or another type of vulnerable person would never be, victim to this kind of criminalization and enforcement. And just days later, MNPD arrested a 61-year-old unhoused man named Joseph Bryant for violating an executive order. He was not cited, he was arrested. I'm deeply concerned about this. I think in the situation of these emergencies, these natural disasters, we can cooperate with the governor's office as we did in May and early June to have an enforceable curfew. And I'm just deeply concerned about criminalizing a curfew. There are people who cannot abide by a curfew. There are people who do not have a home to safely hide in or to safely stay home at. In addition, the things that we're concerned about, be that looting, be that assault, be that attacking buildings or other property, those are already crimes, right? Those are already criminal activities. Like, we do not need an additional criminalization of simply being outside when it's deemed, and again, if there's a situation, a natural disaster, something where it is necessary, we can cooperate with the governor's office as we did in late May and June. And I urge my colleagues to consider who will bear the brunt of this policy should we pass this tonight. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I've always spoken in opposition to this bill for some of the reasons that Councilmember Parker just highlighted. It's just so much that the people that will be impacted will be the minority community. This bill is objective. It's going to count on officer discretion on who they're going to arrest or not. And we know that when that happens, that disproportionately impacts Blacks and minorities. It's just the way it is. We have the reports driving while Black to refer back to, and we have the incident that Councilmember Parker spoke to for the same reason. And so I think that this is not something we want. Now, the mayor can have an executive order. That's not the issue. It's making it a classic misdemeanor. That's what we're speaking against. If somebody is arrested, even if they let go, the arrest still shows on the record. If they are found guilty, they still have to pay the fine. Yes, they can expunge later, but that's something that still follows them. It impacts their ability to get a job. We just keep having a system, a criminal justice system that just keep having more people in trouble that we don't need to. This is not a time, and this is not the type of situation that we need to keep criminalizing people. And so I'm asking everyone, this is not needed at this point. This is not necessary. If people are rioting, the police can arrest them. They're doing that already. And so creating this class for an executive order and criminalizing people forward, I think it's too much at this time. And I ask everyone to please vote against it and think about the unintended consequences and the people that this will negatively impact at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues will remember I spoke with some skepticism here in part because of the rarity of the combined scenarios of a civil emergency with a curfew. I do appreciate Metro Legal and the administration working on that, but I think, again, I know how difficult the environment of our public health orders are, but I think it shows how fraught these tools are when we witnessed for weeks hundreds of people in the entertainment district without a mask, and then not just someone who was unhoused, but an unhoused Black man gets arrested first. And even Interim Chief Drake acknowledged that he was arrested in a period of time in which no other arrests were made. Making this a criminal penalty, I believe remains fraught, and I continue to oppose this, and I hope more colleagues will join those who opposed it on second.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'm not going to be able to support this bill as the councilman that serves the highest incarceration zip code in the country. I can't continue to allow us to criminalize individuals in Nashville. If you haven't had a chance to talk with me, I've dedicated this term to creating opportunities for individuals in my district, and this will definitely be a penalty for those individuals in my district. We have some opportunities to do some different things, but criminalizing individuals that are in their right to protest is not the best way to deal with where we are. So I'll ask my colleagues to please support this, or excuse me, please do not support this and vote no.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Nash, you're recognized.
It's so disappointing. The person that was arrested that's been brought up here, if you saw his interview on Channel 5, he admits that he walked by the officers one time and they gave him a mask and he said, "No, I'm not going to wear a mask." And he went on. He came by again and they did write him a citation. And he admits he tore it right up in front of him and stuck it in a can. So the third time he came by, I don't know what you would have expected the officers to do. Certainly, we don't want people discriminated against because of color. At the same time, they don't get a free pass either. That's just a bad example. Again, we had a curfew in place, and Councilman is saying, well, we can allow the governor to issue the order. Well, then you're right back in the same place. You've got an order that can be enforced by the police officers. So that you're saying it's okay if the governor issues the curfew, but not the mayor. This is rare. During the upset around the courthouse, no one was arrested for curfew, even when the curfew was there. I think we're overthinking this one. It's something that's important to have when you need it. We're not going to need it very often. I would ask you to vote for it.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hauser.
Sorry. Yes. My comments are, if we can't enforce, then it's not a thing. I mean, just say, pretty please, would you please do this because we pretty please want you to, but not have any kind of enforcement behind it, then you might as well not put the order out there because it's just shallow. So I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but I do think that we have to start looking at how do we enforce things, or just don't make the rule. If you make a rule and you can't enforce it, then you're just blowing air to make somebody feel good. So I think we either need the rule, whether it be mask, whether it be curfew or whatever, or we don't. But if we have it, then we need to be able to stand up to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Withers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Certainly I understand a lot of the concerns that a lot of our colleagues have about some things that have happened here in Nashville, although some of the enforcement activities that really have been concerning to me recently have actually been from state troopers and not from police officers or from mayoral orders. So I just want us to think about, there are some things where the council themselves have been asking for enforcement. This gives a tool that's available. It gives a tool that would be available when needed at the order of our mayor. I know that we haven't always agreed with our governor, or at least I haven't, on some of these orders. So I think the point that was made about, you can enforce something when the governor does it. Why would you not necessarily want to have that be available when the mayor orders it? That is really the defining thing to me. I feel like our mayor has more accountability to us than our governor does. And so that is my reasoning for supporting this tool in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Young.
Previous question.
Councilmember Young has called the previous question. We're on the previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
No.
Previous question for bills, we're on the bill. Okay. So we are going to do this by roll call. Okay. Madam Clerk, hold on just a second. Ready? Okay. So we are on, this is BL 2020-335 as amended by Councilmember Pulley and Stiles. If you're for the bill, you vote yes. If you're against the bill, you vote no, or you can abstain. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Mendez.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Hurt. No. Allen.
Aye.
Glover.
No.
Cora.
No.
Hall.
Yes.
Toombs. Yes. Gamble.
Yes.
Swope.
Hold on. What was Councilmember Gamble's vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Swope.
Yes.
I'm sorry. You'll have to repeat that, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Parker.
No.
Withers. Yes. Benedict.
No.
Van Reese.
Yes.
Hancock.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
Evans.
No.
Bradford.
Yes.
Roten.
Yes.
Syracuse. Yes. Welsh.
No.
Sledge.
No.
Cash.
Yes.
O'Connell.
No.
Roberts.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Taylor.
No.
Hauser.
Yes.
Druffel. Yes. Murphy.
Yes.
Pulley.
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Nash.
Yes.
Bircher.
No.
Porterfield.
No.
Sepulveda.
No.
Rutherford.
Yes.
Stiles.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Rosenberg.
Yes.
So the vote is 27 ayes, 13 noes. Bill passes on third reading. All right, so next bill is BL 2020-367 by Councilmember Hager. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by changing from RS 15 to RM2, zoning for property located at 428 Old Lebanon Dirt Road, southeast corner of Old Lebanon Dirt Road and Dotson Chapel Road. Councilmember Hager, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a substitute.
All right, let's get the committee first.
Okay.
Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized.
We voted 15 in favor, 0 against on both the amendment and the bill as amended, or substitute rather.
All right, thank you. Back to you, Councilmember Hager.
This amendment just changed it from RM2 to RM2 NS on the short-term rentals. So I move for passage of the amendment, please.
All right, so Councilmember Hager, it's a substitute. So Councilmember Hager moves the approval of the substitute, properly seconded. Any discussion on the substitute? I see a lot of hands up, but they're from, I think, before. All right. Anybody want to talk about Councilmember Hager's substitute? Councilmember Vircher? Councilmember Vircher, your hands up?
Vice Mayor, I think that's been up since the Yeah, no, I'll take it.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Councilmember Foley, your hand is up.
What are we on?
We are on Councilmember
367.
on Old Lebanon Dirt Road. Okay. That's where you are right now. All right. Nobody's hands are up. We're voting on the substitute. All those in favor of the substitute say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Substitute order is passed, 40 to 0. Councilmember Hager, you're on your bill as substituted.
Move to pass the substitute bill, please.
Councilmember Hager has moved his bill as substitute, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. You adopt, 40 to 0.
Thank you.
We're now on. Thank you, Councilmember Hager. Now we're on BL 2020-368 by Councilmember Rutherford. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by changing from CS to MULA zoning for property located at 6228 Nolensville Pike, approximately 580 feet southeast of Bienville Drive and located with the Corridor Design Overlay District, 6.55 acres. Councilmember Rutherford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee report, please.
All right. Councilmember Murphy, Planning and Zoning.
We voted 15 in favor, 0 against to defer one meeting.
All right. Councilmember Rutherford, back to you.
And that is my motion. One meeting deferral, please.
All right. So you've heard the motion, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? To defer one meeting. All those in favor of the motion to defer say aye.
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 Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? 40 to 0. Motion to defer one meeting passes. We're on BL 2020-374 by Councilmember Syracuse. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by amending a neighborhood landmark overlay district on property located at 2250 Lebanon Pike, the corner of the Bradley Parkway ramp and Lebanon Pike, zone RS20 and R8, partially within the downtown Donaldson Urban Design Overlay District. Councilmember Syracuse, you're recognized. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you. We voted 15 in favor for the amendment and 15 in favor for the bill as amended.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Murphy. Councilmember Syracuse, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move the amendment, please.
All right. So there's a motion to move the amendment, properly seconded. Any discussion? What's the amendment do?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The amendment clarifies what the intent was of the original bill. So this is a historic property that had a neighborhood landmark overlay that controlled use. And when we initially did it, we just did a bed and breakfast. And so now that he's been fundamentally successful and wants to move to the next step, especially in light of the current economic situation where he could really use the revenue, he wants to expand to be able to have events, corporate events, weddings, or whatnot. And so this bill updates the neighborhood landmark overlay. The amendment allows him to do events and weddings on site now, as opposed to the bill as originally written says that you can only do these events once the event center is built, which that's not going to be for 7 or 8 years probably. So this is kind of like a stopgap measure. So I appreciate the support for the amendment.
Okay. So Councilmember Syracuse has explained the amendment. He's got a motion to approve the amendment, and it was properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Any abstentions? 40 to 0. Any corrections to that? Okay, amendment passes. Councilmember Syracuse, you're on your bill on third reading as amended.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move the bill as amended.
So Councilmember Syracuse has moved the bill as amended on third reading. It's been properly seconded. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, all those in favor of the bill say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Councilmember Syracuse, your bill passes 40 to 0 as amended. We are now on BL 2020-376 by Councilmember Swope and Johnston. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from R15, R20, and R40 to RS15, RS20, and RS40. Zoning for various properties located along Broadwell Drive, Woodhurst Drive, Bradfield Court, Bradfield Drive, Granbury Heights Drive, Heather Lane, Heather Springs, Hill Road Circle, San Marcos Drive, Thalman Drive, and Wakefield Drive. Councilmember Swope, you're recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's get that committee report.
Committee report, Planning and Zoning. Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you. We are 15 in favor, 0 against, defer.
I think it was to defer. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm sorry. I muted myself.
Okay.
That is
all right.
correct.
Yeah. Defer how long? Did you make a decision on that one?
1 meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Swope, you're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move for a 1 meeting deferral.
Councilmember Swope moves to defer 1 meeting, properly seconded. Any discussion on this deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral motion say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Any abstentions on the deferral? Bill is deferred 1 meeting, 40 to 0. Last bill on the calendar, BL 2020-379 by Councilmember Stiles, Suara, and others. Ordinance amending Chapter 5.16 of the Metropolitan Code to require certain information to be provided as part of the application for a business tax license. Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to move for approval, please.
All right, so you have an amendment on the bill?
Hold on 1 second.
In a recital clause.
Late file?
It's on third reading, so she can, it doesn't affect the bill if it doesn't pass, but it's just kind of a housekeeping cleanup.
All right, so I assume she has to suspend the rules to get it there. Okay, so Councilmember Stiles, you have an amendment. It's just a housekeeping amendment, but it is on third reading. What do you want to do?
Well, so let's go ahead and move the amendment because I believe it was just a typo, and then we can go to the bill, please.
So wait a minute. I had trouble hearing you. So what would you like to do with your amendment?
Could we move the amendment, please, Vice Mayor? I believe that was just a clarification in grammar and typing.
Okay. So the amendment is because it's a bill on third reading, you can't amend this bill unless you suspend the rules. So you would need to suspend the rules.
I move to suspend the rules, please.
All right, so Councilmember Stiles has moved to amend the rules. Councilmember Rosenberg, do y'all have a report on the Rules Committee?
No, Vice Mayor, this did not come before rules.
All right, so Councilmember Stiles, you're going to have to move to suspend the rules to get it up in front of you and to avoid the fact that you didn't go in front of the Rules Committee. All right, so that's the motion to suspend the rules. Is there any objection to suspend the rules? I see one hand. All right, so only one hand. So so the rules are suspended. Councilmember Stiles, you are on your amendment.
Thank you very much. I would like to move approval for my amended bill, please.
So there's, all right, so there's something wrong with, I think, the microphone. So Councilmember Stiles, I believe, has moved her amendment.
Yes.
Okay, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we are on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions on the amendment? 40 to 0. Councilmember Stiles, we're now on your bill on third reading as amended.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for approval.
Okay, so Councilmember Stiles has moved for approval on BL 2020-379 as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the bill BL 2020-379 as amended on third reading say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Okay.
Lower.
So typically we would have to go do this on the board, but if you vote, I think I just heard one no.
Only no.
Only heard one no.
It was Glover.
Okay, so Councilmember Glover, you're the one no vote. Anybody else vote no? So without objection, it'll be 39-1. Councilmember Glover votes no. Okay, 39-1. Any corrections to that? 0 abstentions. Bill passes on third reading.
Thank you.
That is all there is. Anything else? So it is 10-17. Congratulations. All right. So I would entertain a motion to
Second.
motion to adjourn. Properly second. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn. Say
Aye.
Yes, hi.
Aye.
And so the council has concluded a little less than a 4-hour meeting. That's still a considerable period of time, but this council for the last 6 meetings has not been able to end its meetings within the day it started. In fact, some have gone well past midnight. One even went towards the dawn hours, but now we have broken that streak of 6 consecutive meetings dating back to May, and the council concluded its business on the same day it began it. A couple of things to go through tonight, a couple of things we mentioned before the meeting started. The council indefinitely deferred a bill that would modify health insurance benefits for council members after they leave office. This is indefinite deferral basically means the bill has been killed. This will be the 4th time the council has turned down legislation to make those changes. Dating back to 2012, again 2015 and 2017. Also, a resolution on the agenda tonight was also indefinitely deferred, more or less killing it, calling for a special election here in Metro on December 5th for voters to consider 4 controversial amendments to the city's charter, the Metro Charter, the city's constitution. Councilman Glover indicates he's going to be bringing the bill back if he can. It goes first now to the Metro Charter Revision Commission, and then they can make a recommendation back. But the fact that the council voted to indefinitely defer it is a pretty good sign that getting 27 votes to put any of these matters on the ballot in December is probably a tall order. We'll see what happens. He may be bringing it back again after the Charter Commission meets, which is on September 11th. Council did approve 2 memorializing resolutions tonight, one recognizing the 30th anniversary of the Federal Law of Americans Disability Act, and also recognizing the 100th anniversary today of the ratification of the 19th Amendment to give women the vote. That amendment was actually ratified here in Tennessee, given the final and 36th state approval back on this date, August 18th, 1920. Council also approved on third and final reading after some discussion a bill that would make it a violation of a mayoral executive order, make that a Class C misdemeanor to do that. The council vote, after some debate, was 27 in favor and 13 against. A couple of things that did come up tonight that were not necessarily things that we knew were going to be on the agenda. These are under late resolutions or late ordinances. One approved, they're both approved in terms of the ordinances. One was 2 late bills. Again, they're on first reading. They were approved tonight. It would allow the mayor to use Metro employees other than police, the health department, and codes inspectors to issue citations and also to do stop work orders involving the enforcement of health orders. This obviously around the situations going on with the mask violations and other things involving COVID-19. A late resolution the council did approve tonight allocates $2.5 million in the monies that Metro has from the federal government in the CARES Act that would allow for food assistance, with the money going through the Second Harvest Food Bank to purchase that food and also to keep it refrigerated and ready to be distributed. Those 2 things were also passed tonight. Finally, tonight, we don't normally talk a lot about the zoning matters that go up. Usually the issues that do come up when they're controversial are sort of limited to a neighborhood. This particular case, though, we had quite an extended debate because of the redevelopment of the old Starwood Amphitheater properties out in the Antioch area. Where it's located is in one council district, but it borders a couple of others. Quite a bit of disagreement about this rezoning. Some people thought it was too much warehouse involved in it, too many tractor trailers, too much industrial use. After some long debate by the council, they finally voted 12 in favor of the rezoning, 25 against, and 3 abstentions. That's a little unusual to see a zoning bill like that that's supported by the district councilman defeated, but that is exactly what happened tonight. The council is now in recess until the first day of September, September 1st, that's the first Tuesday of the month. We'll be here at that time to provide live coverage. Until then, good night from the council chambers.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.